I decided to do some reading today. Yeah, it's Mr. Popper's Penguins. And I'm not going to be interacting with the chat, so please don't bother. I'm going to be reading. I don't know how far I'll read or how long I'll read, but we'll see where it takes us. This is a Newbery Honor Book, Mr. Popper's Penguins, written by Richard and Florence Atwater, and the illustrations are by Robert Lawson. This is the cover illustration. The illustrations are absolutely adorable in this book, so I will take the time to share them with you. You'll see them at the beginning of chapters and here and there. Of course, the title page, Mr. Popper's Penguins. This is a Little Brown and Company publication, New York, Boston, London. Copyright 1938 by Richard and Florence Atwater. Copyright renewed 1966 by Florence Atwater, Doris Atwater, and Carol Atwater Bishop. All rights reserved, Little Brown and Company. Time Warner Book Group, 1271 Avenue of America, New York, New York, 10020. Visit our website at www.lb-kids.com. Library of Congress cataloging and publication data. Atwater Richard, Mr. Popper's Penguins. Pretty cool. Printed in the United States of America. As you can see, parts of it are going to fall apart. I may drop pieces of it as I'm reading, but that's okay. This has been a very loved and read book. I think there's a lot of interesting lessons in this book. Can't really recall if this was put in our study of endangered animals, if it was just simply part of our literature. I can't really remember exactly, but again, we used to read these types of books and then we would follow up with the movies, and this was a delightful movie. I can't remember around when it was done, but amazing cast, yeah, along with the Penguins. So we'll have to make sure we give major props there. And I'm going to go ahead and start. I can't guarantee, like I said, how long I will last. But wherever I leave off today, I will pick up on another day. I'll save music for maybe the next round. It is what it is. I just felt like reading today. Okay, so contents. Chapter 1, Stillwater. Mr. Popper's Penguins. Chapter 1, Stillwater. It was an afternoon in late September in the pleasant little city of Stillwater. Mr. Popper, the house painter, was going home from work. I probably will have to put the broken pieces down because they're going to drive me nuts. He was carrying his buckets, his ladders, and his boards so that he had rather a hard time moving along. He was spattered here and there with paint and calcimine, and there were bits of wallpaper clinging to his hair and whiskers, for he was rather an untidy man. The children looked up from their play to smile at him as he passed, and the housewives, seeing him, said, "Oh dear, there goes Mr. Popper. I must remember to ask John to have the house painted over in the spring." Here he is, his untidy self. No one knew what went on inside of Mr. Popper's head, and no one guessed that he would one day be the most famous person in Stillwater. He was a dreamer. Even when he was busiest smoothing down the paste off the wallpaper or painting the outside of other people's houses, he would forget what he was doing. Once he had painted 3 sides of a kitchen green and the other side yellow. The housewife, instead of being angry and making him do it over, had liked it so well that she had made him leave it that way. And all the other housewives, when they saw it, admired it too. So that pretty soon everybody in Stillwater had 2-colored kitchens. The reason Mr. Popper was so absent-minded was that he was always dreaming about faraway countries. He had never been out of Stillwater. Not that he was unhappy. He had a nice little house of his own, a wife whom he loved dearly, and 2 children named Janie and Bill. Still, it would have been nice, he often thought, if he could have seen something of the world before he met Mrs. Popper and settled down. He had never hunted tigers in India, or climbed the peaks of the Himalayas, or dived for pearls in the South Seas. Above all, he had never seen the poles. That was what he regretted most of all. He had never seen those great shining white expanses of ice and snow. He wished that he had been a scientist. Hi. What are you doing? You listening? That was an unexpected visit. Sorry about that. That's what he regretted most of all. He had never seen those great shining white expanses of ice and snow. How he wished that he had been a scientist instead of a house painter in Stillwater, so that he might have joined some of the great polar expeditions. Since he could not go, he was always thinking about them. Whenever he heard that a polar movie was in town, he was the first person at the ticket window, and often he sat through 3 shows. Whenever the town library had a new book about the Arctic or the Antarctic, the North Pole or the South Pole, Mr. Popper was first to borrow it. Indeed, he had read so much about polar explorers that he could name all of them and tell you what each had done. He was quite an authority on the subject. His evenings were the best time of all. Then he could sit down in his little house and read about those cold regions at the top and the bottom of the earth. As he read, he could take the little globe that Janie and Bill had given him for Christmas before and search out the exact spot he was reading about. Always fun to do in a classroom. Yes, this place really exists. Yes, living things really exist there. Super, super fun to do. Because what happens is we all have our own little epicenter, and those little circles need to grow and grow and grow and grow so that you realize you are only a seed on a sesame seed bun. You are not the bun. You are not the burger. You are just a piece, a very small piece of a very large, important situation or earth or whatever you want to call it. Okay. Sorry, this is what my brain is going to do. I'll probably interrupt myself a few times, but it is what it is. I'm enjoying. I can actually kind of recall the last time I read this book, and it's delightful. I'm going to carry on. Pardon my interruptions. So now, as he made his way through the streets, he was happy because the day was over and because it was the end of September. When he came to the gate of the neat little bungalow at 432 Proudfoot Avenue, he turned in. "Well, my love," he said, setting down his buckets and ladders and boards and kissing Mrs. Popper. "The decorating season is over. I have painted all the kitchens in Stillwater. I have prepared all rooms in the new apartment building on Elm Street. There's no more work until spring, when people will want their houses painted." Mrs. Popper sighed. "I sometimes wish you had the kind of work that lasted all year, instead of just from spring until fall," she said. "It will be very nice to have you at home for a vacation, of course. But it's a little hard to sweep with a man sitting around reading all day." "Get out of the way, Mr. Popper." "I could decorate the house for you." "No, indeed," said Mrs. Popper firmly. "Last year you painted the bathroom 4 different times because you had nothing else to do, and I think that is enough of that. But what worries me is the money. I've saved a little, and I dare say we can get along as we have other winters. No more roast beef, no more ice cream, not even on Sundays." "Shall we have beans every day?" asked Janie and Bill, coming in from play. "I'm afraid so," said Mrs. Popper. "Anyway, go wash your hands for supper, and Papa put away this litter of paints because you won't be needing them for quite a while." Hi there in the chat. Thanks for acknowledging. Chapter 2, The Voice in the Air. I don't know if you've already made the connections as to why I chose this book. I know I have made my connections as to why I chose this book. We'll see as we go how you feel about that. The Voice in the Air. That evening, when the little Poppers had been put to bed, Mr. and Mrs. Popper settled down for a long, quiet evening. The neat living room at 432 Proudfoot Avenue was much like all the other living rooms in Stillwater, except that the walls were hung with pictures from the National Geographic magazine. Mrs. Popper picked up her mending, while Mr. Popper collected his pipe, his book, and his globe. From time to time, Mrs. Popper sighed a little as she thought about the long winter ahead. Would there really be enough beans to last, she wondered. Mr. Popper was not worried, however, and as he put on his spectacles, he was quite pleased at the prospect of a whole winter of reading travel books with no work to interrupt him. He set his little globe beside him and began to read. "What are you reading?" asked Mrs. Popper. "Oh, I'm reading a book called Antarctic Adventures. It is very interesting. It tells all about the different people who have gone to the South Pole and what they have found there." "Don't you ever get tired of reading about the South Pole?" "No, I don't. Of course, I would much rather go there than read about it. But reading is the next best thing." "I think it must be very boring down there," said Mrs. Popper. "It sounds very dull and cold with all that ice and snow." "Oh, no," answered Mr. Popper. "You wouldn't think it was dull if you had gone with me to see the movies of the Drake expedition at the Bijou last year." "Well, I didn't, and I don't think any of us will have any money for movies now," answered Mrs. Popper, a little sharply. She wasn't at all a disagreeable woman, but sometimes got rather cross when she was worried about money. Understandable, don't you think? Yeah. If you had gone, my love," went on Mr. Popper, "you would have seen how beautiful the Antarctic is. But I think the nicest part of all is the penguins. No wonder all the men on the expedition had such a good time playing with them. They are the funniest birds in the world. They don't fly like other birds. They walk erect like little men, and when they get tired of walking, they just lie down on their stomachs and slide. It would be very nice to have one for a pet." "Pets," said Mrs. Popper. "First it's Bill wanting a dog, then Janie begging for a kitten. Now you and penguins? But I won't have any pets around. They make way too much dirt in the house, and I have enough work now trying to keep this place as tidy as it is. To say nothing of that, it costs to feed a pet. Anyway, we have a bowl of goldfish. When all else fails, get a goldfish, right? Yeah. Penguins are very intelligent," continued Mr. Popper. "Listen to this, Mama," he says. It says here, when they want to catch some shrimps, they all crowd over the edge of an ice bank. Only they don't jump, because a sea leopard might be waiting to eat the penguins. So they crowd and push until they manage to shove one penguin off to see if it's safe. I mean, if it doesn't get eaten up, the rest of them know it's safe for all of them to jump in." "Dear me," says Mrs. Popper in a shocked tone. "They sound to me like pretty heathen birds." "It's a queer thing," said Mr. Popper, "that all the polar bears live in the North Pole and all the penguins at the South Pole. I should think the penguins would like the North Pole, too, if they only knew how to get there." Well, at 10 o'clock, Mrs. Popper yawned and laid down her mending. Hello, visit number 2. Well, you can go on reading about those heathen birds, but I'm going to bed. Tomorrow is Thursday, September 13th, and I have to go to the first meeting of the Ladies' Aid and Missionary Society. God bless you. Yeah, I know. September 13th, said Mr. Popper in an excited tone. "You don't mean that tonight is Wednesday, September 29th. "Oh, why, yes, I suppose it is, but what of it?" Mr. Popper put down his book of Antarctic adventures and moved hastily to the radio. "What of it?" he repeated, pushing the switch. "The switch? Why?" The switch. "Why, this is the night the Drake Antarctic expedition is going to start broadcasting." How did he not have this on the top of his head? I'll never know. That's nothing," said Mrs. Popper. "Just a lot of men at the bottom of the world saying, 'Hello, Mama, hello, Papa.'" "Shh," commanded Mr. Popper, laying his ear close to the radio. There was a buzz, and then suddenly from the South Pole, a faint voice floated out into the Poppers' living room. "This is Admiral Drake speaking. Hello, Mama, hello, Papa, hello, Mr. Popper." "Gracious goodness," exclaimed Mrs. Popper. "Did he say Papa or Popper?" "Hello, Mr. Popper, up there in Stillwater. Thanks for your nice letter about the pictures of our last expedition. Watch for an answer, but not by letter, Mr. Popper. Watch for a surprise. Signing off, signing off." "You wrote to Admiral Drake?" "Yes, I did," Mr. Popper admitted. "I wrote and told him how funny I thought the penguins were." "Well, I never," said Mrs. Popper, very much impressed. Mr. Popper picked up his little globe and found the Antarctic, and to think he spoke to me from all the way there. And he even mentioned my name, Mama. What do you suppose he means by surprise?" "I haven't any idea," answered Mrs. Popper. "But I'm going to bed, and I don't want to be late for the Ladies' Aid and Missionary Society meeting tomorrow." Isn't this delightful, this story? We're on to chapter 3, Out of the Antarctic. I love these little penguins at the beginning of each chapter. I don't know if anybody's listening, but if you are, it is really a delightful story. The connections already. What with the excitement of having the great Admiral Drake speak to him over the radio and his curiosity about the Admiral's message to him, Mr. Popper didn't sleep very well that night. Does anyone sleep anymore? I don't think so. He did not see how he could possibly wait to find out what the Admiral meant. When morning came, he was almost sorry that he had nowhere to go, no houses to paint, no rooms to paper. It would have helped to pass the time. Would you like the living room papered over? He asked Mrs. Popper. I have quite a lot of paper, number 88, left over the mayor's house. I would not, said Mrs. Popper firmly. The paper that is on now, is plenty good enough. I'm going to the first ladies of the, the first meeting of the Ladies' Aid and Missionary Society today, and I don't want any mess around to clean up when I get home. Hello, visitor number 3. I'm only on chapter 3. What's up? Yeah. Are you excited because you look like a penguin? Yeah? You're all wet. Is it raining? Yes, it is. Anyway, so the one cat who's no longer here, yes, the one I lost in January to a very terrible death, was also a black and white cat, but long-haired, and his name was Puffin, and he was named after my first Puffin, who was another long-haired beauty that I got at a Humane Society. And this little guy, he's got the short coat suit, but I guess you could be my penguin for today. Can you just sit down, though? You gotta sit still. I know, you're getting me all wet, and I'm not really for it right now. But okay, thank you for your approval of the book. Oh, good Lord. You gotta pick a spot, huh? Yeah, pick a spot. Come on. That's so nice to have a hiney in your face. Anyway, okay. He's moved on, so let's continue. Like I said, I had 3 other beautiful animals a year ago. Thanks to the many wonderful, colorful people in my area that they're no longer here. But every animal situation and every book I read and everything, you know, there's a meaning to it. So yeah, rest in peace, Papa. Here we go. Okay, she's on her way to that Ladies' Aid and Missionary Society meeting. Very well, my love, said Mr. Popper meekly, and he settled down with his pipe, his globe, and his book of Antarctic adventures. But somehow, as he read today, he could not keep his mind on the printed words. His thoughts kept straying away to what Admiral Drake had said. What could he have meant by surprise for Mr. Popper? Fortunately, for his peace of mind, he did not have very long to wait. That afternoon, while Mrs. Popper was still away at her meeting and Janie and Bill had not yet come home from school, there was a loud ring at the front door. I suppose it was just the postman. I wonder how I love when the postman rings the door. I suppose it's just the postman. I won't bother to answer it, he said to himself. The bell rang again, a little louder this time. Grumbling to himself, Mr. Popper went to the door. It was not the postman who stood there. It was an expressman with the largest box Mr. Popper had ever seen. Party by the name of Popper live here? Oh, that's me. Well, here's a package that's come from Air Express all the way from Antarctica. Some journey, I'll say. Mr. Popper signed the receipt and examined the box. It was covered all over with markings. Unpack at once, said one. Keep cool, said another. He noticed that the box was punched here and there with little air holes. You can imagine that once he had the box inside the house, Mr. Popper lost no time in getting the screwdriver. For this time, of course, he had guessed that it was the surprise from Admiral Drake. He had succeeded in removing the outer boards and part of the packing, which was a layer of dry ice, and from the depths of the packing case, he had suddenly heard a faint ork. His heart stood still. Suddenly, he had heard that sound before. Wait, I didn't read that properly. Oh, surely he had heard that sound before at Drake's expedition in... Oh my God, get this sentence out. Let me try again. Surely he had heard that sound before. Oh, at the Drake expedition movies. No, did read it properly. His hands were trembling so that he could scarcely lift off the last of the wrappings. There was not the slightest doubt about it. It was a penguin. Mr. Popper was speechless with delight. But the penguin was not speechless. Or it had said again, and this time it held out its flippers and jumped over the packing debris. It was a stout little fellow, about 2.5 feet high. Although it was about the size of a small child, it looked much more like a little gentleman, with its smooth white waistcoat in front and its long black tailcoat dragging a little behind. Its eyes were set in 2 white circles in its black head, and it turned its head from side to the other, at first with one eye and then with the other. It examined Mr. Popper. Mr. Popper had read that penguins are extremely curious, and he soon found that it was true. For stepping out, the visitor began to inspect the house. Well, would you look at this? Well, would you look at this? Out pops what? A penguin. Nice wallpaper choice. Oh. Down the hall it went into the bedrooms with its strange, pompous little strut. When it or he, Mr. Popper had already begun to think of it as a he, got to the bathroom, it looked around with a pleased expression on its face. Perhaps, thought Mr. Popper, all that white tiling reminds him of the ice and snow at the South Pole. Poor thing, maybe he's thirsty. Carefully, Mr. Popper began to fill the bathtub with cold water. This was a little difficult because the inquisitive bird kept reaching over and trying to bite the faucets with its sharp red beak. Finally, however, he succeeded in getting the tub filled. Since the penguin kept looking over, Mr. Popper picked it up and dropped it in. The penguin seemed not to mind. Anyway, you're not shy, said Mr. Popper. I guess you've got sort of used to playing around with those explorers at the pole. When he thought the penguin had had enough of a bath, he drew out the stopper. He was just wondering what to do next when Janie and Bill burst in from school. Here's the pompous walk, I guess. Pompous penguin walk. Cute. Papa, they shouted together at the bathroom door. What is it? Oh, it's a South Pole penguin sent to me by the Admiral Drake. Look, said Bill, it's marching. The delighted penguin was indeed marching. With little pleased nods of his handsome black head, he was parading up and down the inside of the bathtub. Sometimes he seemed to be counting the steps it took. 6 steps for the length, 2 steps for the width, 6 steps for the length again, and 2 more for the width. For such a big bird, he takes awfully small steps, said Bill. And look how his little black coat drags behind. It almost looks as if it were too big for him, said Janie. But the penguin was tired of marching. This time, when it got to the end of the tub, it decided to jump up the slippery curve, and it turned and, with outstretched flippers, tobogganed down on its white stomach. They could see those flippers, which were black on the outside, like sleeves of a tailcoat, were white underneath. Quack, 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 said the penguin, trying its new game again and again. What's his name, Papa, said Janie. Quack, quack, said the penguin, sliding down once more on his glossy white stomach. It sounds something like Cook, said Mr. Popper. But that's it, of course. We'll call him Cook, Captain Cook. All right, so he basically named himself. Chapter 4. Captain Cook. Call who, Captain Cook? Asked Mrs. Popper. Oh, no. Who had come in so quietly that none of them had heard her. Why, the penguin, said Mr. Popper. I was just saying, he went on, as Mrs. Popper sat down suddenly on the floor to recover from her surprise, that we'd name him after Captain Cook. He was a famous English explorer who lived about the time of the American Revolution. He sailed all over where no one had ever been before. He didn't actually get to the South Pole, of course, but he made a lot of other important scientific discoveries about the Antarctic regions. He was a brave man and a kind leader, so I think Captain Cook would be a very suitable name for our penguin here. Well, I never, said Mrs. Popper. Gork, said Captain Cook. Suddenly getting lively again, with a flap of his flippers, he jumped from the tub to the washstand and stood there for a minute, surveying the floor. Then he jumped down, walked over to Mrs. Popper, and began to peck her ankle. Oh, God. Stop him, Papa, screamed Mrs. Popper, retreating into the hallway with Captain Cook after her. and Mr. Popper and the children following. In the living room she paused. So did Captain Cook, for he was delighted with that room. Now, a penguin may look very strange in a living room, but a living room looks very strange to a penguin. Even Mrs. Popper had to smile as they watched Captain Cook with the light of curiosity in his excited little circular eyes and his black tailcoat dragging pompously behind his tail. Oops. No, not behind his tail, behind his little pinkish feet. Strut from one upholstered chair to the other, pecking at each to see what it was made of. Then he turned suddenly and marched out to the kitchen. Maybe he's hungry, said Janie. Captain Cook immediately marched up to the refrigerator. Gork, he inquired, turning to slant his head wisely at Mrs. Popper and looking at her pleadingly with his right eye. He certainly is cute, she said. I guess I'll have to forgive him for biting my ankle. He probably only did it out of curiosity. Anyway, he is a nice, clean-looking bird. Gork, repeated the penguin, nibbling at the metal handle of the refrigerator door with his upstretched beak. Mr. Popper opened the door for him, and Captain Cook stood very high and leaned his sleek head back, so that he could see inside. Now that Mr. Popper's work was over for the winter, the icebox was not so full as usual, but the penguin did not know that. What do you suppose he likes to eat? Asked Mrs. Popper. Let's see, said Mr. Popper, as he removed all of the food and set it on the kitchen table. Now then, Captain Cook, take a look. The penguin jumped up on the chair and from there onto the edge of the table, flapping his flippers again to recover his balance. Then he walked solemnly around the table and between the dishes of food, inspecting everything with the greatest interest, though he touched nothing. Finally, he stood still, very erect, raised his beak to point at the ceiling, and made a loud, almost purring sound. Roar, roar, he trilled. That's a penguin's way of saying how pleased it is, said Mr. Popper, who had read all about it in the Antarctic books. Apparently, however, what Captain Cook wanted to show was that he was pleased with their kindness rather than their food. For now, to their surprise, he jumped down and walked into the dining room. I know, said Mr. Popper. We ought to have some seafood for him. Canned shrimps or something? Or maybe he isn't hungry yet. I've read that penguins can go for a month without food. Well, he was a polite little bugger, right? Mama, Papa, called Bill. Come see what Captain Cook has done. Captain Cook had done it all right. He had discovered the bull goldfish, oh no, on the dining room windowsill. By the time Mrs. Popper reached over to lift him away, he had already swallowed the last of the goldfish. Bad penguin, reproved Mrs. Popper, glaring down at Captain Cook. Captain Cook squatted guilty on the carpet and tried to make himself look small. He knows he's done nothing wrong, said Mr. Popper. Isn't he smart? Oh, no, he knows he has done wrong, said Mr. Popper. Isn't he smart? Maybe we can train him, said Mrs. Popper. Bad, naughty captain, she said to the penguin in a loud voice. Bad to eat the goldfish. And she spanked him on his round black head. Oh, my goodness. Before she could do that again, Captain Cook hastily waddled out of the kitchen. There the Poppers found him, trying to hide in the still-opened refrigerator. He was squatting under the ice cube coils, under which he could barely squeeze, sitting down, his round, white-circled eyes looking out at them mysteriously from the dimness of the inside of the box. I think that it's about the right temperature for him at that, said Mr. Popper. We could let him sleep there at night. But where will I put the food? Asked Mrs. Popper. Oh, I guess we can get another icebox for food, said Mr. Popper. Look, said Janie, he's gone to sleep. Mr. Popper turned the cold control switch to its coldest so that Captain Cook could sleep more comfortably. Then he left the door ajar so that the penguin would have plenty of fresh air to breathe. Tomorrow I will have the icebox service department send a man out to bore some holes in the door for air, he said, and then we can put a handle on the inside of the door so Captain Cook can go in and out of his refrigerator as he pleases. Well, dear, I never thought we would ever have a penguin for a pet, said Mrs. Popper. Still, he behaves pretty well on the whole, and he's so nice and clean, and perhaps he will be a good example to you and the children. And now I declare we must get busy. We haven't done anything but watch that bird, Papa. Will you just help me set the beans up on the table, please? Just a minute, answered Mr. Popper. I just happen to think that Captain Cook will not feel right on the floor of the icebox. Penguins make their nests of pebbles and stones, so I'll just take some ice cubes out of the tray and put them down under him. That way he'll be more comfortable. You know what happens when you build a nest, right? All right, we're on to chapter 5. Troubles with a penguin. Listen, he ate the goldfish. Tells you something, right? Got to know what to feed your animals. Hi, another person in the chat. Today we're reading Mr. Popper's Penguins. The next day was quite eventful at 432 Proudfoot Avenue. First there was the serviceman, and then the policeman, and then the trouble about the license. Here we go. Captain Cook was in the children's room watching Janie and Bill put together a jigsaw puzzle on the floor. He was very good about not disturbing the pieces after Bill had spanked him for eating one. A spanking going on. He did not hear the refrigerator serviceman come to the back door. Mrs. Popper had gone marketing for canned shrimps for the penguins, so that Mr. Popper was alone in the kitchen to explain to the serviceman what he wanted done to the refrigerator. The serviceman put his tool bag down on the kitchen floor, looked at the refrigerator, and then at Mr. Popper, who, to tell the truth, had not shaved yet and was not very tidy. Mister, he said, you don't need no ventilating holes in that there door. It's my icebox, and I want some holes bored in the door, said Mr. Popper. They argued about it for quite a while. Mr. Popper knew that to get the serviceman to do what he wanted, all he had to do was to explain what he was going to keep, that he was going to keep a live penguin in the icebox, and that he wanted his pet to have plenty of fresh air, even though the door was closed all night. He felt a little stubborn about explaining, however. He didn't want to disgust Captain Cook with this unsympathetic serviceman, who was already staring at Mr. Popper as if he thought Mr. Popper was not quite right in the head. Come on, do what I said, said Mr. Popper. I'm paying you for it. With what? Asked the serviceman. Mr. Popper gave him a $5 bill. It made him a little sad to think how many beans it would have bought for Mrs. Popper and the children. The serviceman examined the bill carefully, as if he didn't trust Mr. Popper too much. But at last he put it in his pocket, took a drill from his tool bag, and made 5 small holes in a neat pattern on the refrigerator door. Now, said Mr. Popper, don't get up. Wait a minute. There's one more thing. Now what? Said the serviceman. I suppose now you want me to take the door off the hinges to let in a little more air, or do you want me to make a radio set out of your icebox? Don't get funny, said Mr. Popper indignantly. That's no way to talk. Believe it or not, I know what I'm doing. I mean, having you do. I want you to fix an extra handle on the inside of that box so it can be opened from the inside. That, said the serviceman, is a fine idea. You want an extra handle on the inside? Sure. He picked up his tool bag. Aren't you going to do it for me? Asked Mr. Popper. Sure, said the serviceman, edging toward the back door. Mr. Popper saw that for all his words of agreement, the serviceman had no intention of putting on an inside handle. I thought you were a serviceman, he said. I am. That's the first sensible thing you've said. You've said yet. You're a fine kind of serviceman if you don't even know how to put an extra handle on the inside of an icebox door. Oh, I don't think I don't know how. As far as that goes, I've even got a spare handle in my tool bag and plenty of screws. You didn't think I don't know how to do it if I wanted to. Mr. Popper silently reached in his pocket, gave the serviceman his last $5 bill. He was pretty sure that Mrs. Popper would be annoyed at him for spending all the money, but it could not be helped. Mister, said the serviceman, you win. I'll fix your extra handle. Sneaky serviceman. He was pretty sure that Mrs. Popper would be annoyed at him for spending all the money, but it could not be helped. Oh, I read that already. Sorry. And while I'm doing it, you just sit down on that chair over there facing me, where I can keep an eye on you. Fair enough, said Mr. Popper, sitting down. The serviceman was still on the floor, putting in the final screws that held the new handle in place, when the penguin came out to the kitchen on his silent pink feet. Surprised at seeing a strange man sitting on the floor, Captain Cook quietly walked over and began to peck him curiously. The serviceman was even more surprised than Captain Cook. Ork, said the penguin, or perhaps it was the serviceman. Mr. Popper wasn't sure what had just happened. Oh, this is not good. When he picked up himself and his chair a moment later, there had been a shower of flying tools, a violent slamming of the door, and the serviceman was gone. Suddenly, noises, of course, brought the children running. Mr. Popper showed them how the refrigerator was now all remodeled for the penguin. He showed Captain Cook, too, by shutting him inside it. The penguin at once noticed the shiny new handle on the inside, bit it with its usual curiosity. The door opened, and Captain Cook jumped out. Great, everything works fine. Mr. Popper promptly put the Captain Cook back inside and shut the door again to be sure that the penguin learned his lesson. Before long, Captain Cook became quite skillful at getting out and was ready to be taught how to get inside when the door was shut. So by the time the policeman came to the back door, Captain Cook was going in and out the refrigerator as easily as if he had lived in one all his life. Al B. I'm guessing the serviceman didn't enjoy his experience with the penguin. Thanks for the love, power arrangement. Thanks for the love. Oh, chapter 6. Of course, what do we have? Oh no, more troubles. I lost a section. Oh, loved books always fall apart. Okay. More trouble. What else is new, right? What else is new? Welcome to my channel. There's always some sort of trouble happening. More troubles, more troubles. Okay, so the children were the first to notice the policeman. Look, Papa, said Bill. There's a policeman at the back door. Is he going to arrest you? Ook, said Captain Cook, walking with dignity to the back door and trying to poke his beak through the screen. Is this 432 Proudfoot Avenue? It is, answered Mr. Popper. Well, I guess this is the right place, said the policeman and pointed to Captain Cook. Is that thing yours? Yes, it is, said Mr. Popper proudly. And what do you do for a living? Asked the policeman sternly. Papa is an artist, said Janie. I really love this book. He's always getting paint and calcimite all over his clothes, said Bill. I'm a house painter, a decorator, said Mr. Popper. Won't you come in? I won't, said the policeman, unless I have to. Ha ha, said Bill. The policeman is afraid of Captain Cook. Gaw, said the penguin, opening his red beak wide, as if he wanted to laugh at the policeman. Can it talk? Asked the policeman. What is it, a giant parrot? It's a penguin, said Janie. We keep it for a pet. Well, if it's only a bird, said the policeman, lifting his cap to scratch his head in a puzzled sort of way. From the way that fellow with a tool bag yelled at me outside, I thought there was a lion loose in here. Perhaps there is. Mama says, Papa's hair looks like a lion sometimes, said Bill. You know, morning hair has that effect on people. Keep still, Bill, said Janie. The policeman doesn't care how Papa's hair looks. The policeman now scratched his chin. If it's only a bird, I suppose it'll be okay if you keep him in a cage. Well, we keep him in the icebox, said Bill. You put him in the icebox for all... You can put him in the icebox for all I care, said the policeman. What kind of bird did you say it was? A penguin, answered Mr. Popper. And by the way, I might want to take him walking with me. Would it be all right if I kept him on a leash? I tell you, said the policeman, honestly, I don't know what the municipal ordinance is about penguins. With or without a leash on public streets. I'll ask my sergeant. Maybe I ought to get a license for him, suggested. Maybe I ought to get a license for him, suggested Mr. Popper. Certainly big enough for a license, said the policeman. I'll tell you what to do. You call up City Hall and ask them what the ruling about penguins is. And good luck to you, Popper. He's kind of a cute little fellow. At that, looks almost human. Good day to you, Popper, and good day to you, Mr. Penguin. Well, that was a surprising response by the policeman, don't you think? When Mr. Popper telephoned the City Hall to see about a license for Captain Cook, I usually get hung up on, or I don't get through it all. The penguin did his best to disconnect the telephone by biting the green cord. Perhaps he thought it was some new kind of eel. But just then, Mrs. Popper came back from market and opened a can of shrimp so that Mr. Popper was soon left alone at the telephone. Even so, he found it was not so easy to learn whether or not he must get a license for his strange pet. Every time he would explain what he wanted, he'd be told to wait a minute. And, oh my God, hold on. Every time he would explain what he wanted, he'd be told to wait a minute, and much later a new voice would ask him what he wanted. This went on for a considerable... God, does this go on for considerable lengths of time? After a while, I just usually yell and get really disgruntled. I apologize, but not really. I find most of the time it's totally appropriate. It's rude, but it's appropriate. He would be told to wait a minute, and much later a new voice would ask him what he wanted. This went on for a considerable time. At last, a new voice seemed to take a little interest in the case. Every once in a blue moon, that happens. Pleased with his friendly voice, Mr. Popper began again to tell about Captain Cook. Is he an army captain, a police captain, or a navy captain? He is not, said Mr. Popper. He is a penguin. She's just a girl. Will you repeat that, please? Said the voice. Mr. Popper repeated it. The voice suggested that perhaps he'd better spell it. Penguin, said Mr. Popper. Penguin. Oh, said the voice. You mean that Captain Cook's first name is Benjamin? Not Benjamin, penguin. It's a bird, said Mr. Popper. Do you mean, said the phone in his ear, that Captain Cook wishes a license to shoot birds? I'm sorry, the bird hunting season does not open until November. And please try to speak a little more distinctly. Mr. Topper, did you say your name is? My name is Popper, not Topper, shouted Mr. Popper. See, this is what happens. This is what happens. I understand how Mr. Popper feels. Yes, Mr. Potter. Now I can hear you quite clearly. Yesterday it was. I'm not giving you that information. Well, I can't help you. Then ask me other questions. Well, no, I have other people to call. Oh, you do you? Now you're doing me a favor. Oh, I was not nice. I can't. I do my best. After a while, I just can't. I'm sure you all understand. Side note from Mr. Popper's Penguins. Okay. My name is Popper, not Topper, shouted Mr. Popper. Yes, Mr. Potter, now I can hear you quite clearly. Then listen, roared Mr. Popper, now completely outraged. If you folks at City Hall don't even know what penguins are, I guess you haven't any rule saying that it has to be licensed. I will do without a license for Captain Cook. Just a minute, Mr. Popwell. Our own Mr. Treadbottom of the Bureau of Navigation of Lakes, Rivers, Ponds, and Streams has just come in. I'll let you speak to him personally. Perhaps he knows the Benjamin Cook of yours. This is ridiculous. In a moment, a new voice, of course, was speaking to Mr. Popper. Good morning. This is the Automobile License Bureau. My gosh. Me and Mr. Popper, I tell you what, we should go out for a drink. That's all I have to say. Okay. Good morning. This is the Automobile License Bureau. Did you have the same car last year? And if so, what was the license number? Mr. Popper had been switched over to the county building. The county building. He decided to hang up. I can't even get through. I can't get through using the computer. I can't get through using the phone. I can't even get through with representatives on Facebook. Oh, goodness gracious. Let me just tell you, going from the Bureau of Navigation of Lakes, Rivers, Ponds, and Streams to the Automobile License Bureau, I was hung up too. I have hung up on a few people. I've also been hung up on. I hate the fucking phone now. I don't know my expression, but like, unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's called the runaround game. Pardon the penguins for a moment, but I gotta tell you, they have made it impossible to get answers, to get direct responses from people who should be able to assist you. The runaround game. I feel like people should now be able to go and get a master's in the runaround game, because there are some people who are legitimately phenomenal at it. Nobody wants to use the phone anymore, and everything's automated. So you can't really argue with an automated system. But let me tell you, if you do get a person online and you argue with them, it's quite fun, because nobody knows how to do it anymore. Nobody knows how to go back and forth with information. They know how to repeat a script back at you. They can't answer your questions directly. There's always a loophole as to why they can't answer those questions. So then you have to escalate. Then you get to the next level up. And then that person also has a script and a loophole. But you do, every once in a while, get a very kind person who does have a small interest in what you have to say. And I can only hope during the last year and a half that there have been enough, or maybe at least one genuine listener out there who did the right thing. I can't guarantee it has happened at all, but boy, do I have a list of lovely names. Because, you know, I don't think I've spoken to the Bureau of Lakes, Rivers, and Ponds. I did speak to someone about having a snapping turtle issue. Yeah, that was very creative. I love when people pretend to be other people because then they have to come up with some seriously crazy narratives. I said, snapping turtles, really? You know, snapping turtles don't hang out in the same pond, right? Turtles are migratory. They move all over the place. They never sit still. But you have a snapping turtle issue. Bravo. I've heard it all. I'm seriously, like, there's only a few things I don't think I've heard yet, and I'm ever so listening intently. Okay, let's see now what happens here. Does he get the license or not? Oh, got some pictures. Okay, chapter 7. Captain Cook builds a nest. Ah, she's just a girl. I tried to tell you. Very reluctantly, Janie and Bill had to leave Captain Cook and go to school. Mrs. Popper was busy in the kitchen, rather belatedly doing the breakfast dishes. And while she dimly realized that the penguin was going in and out to the refrigerator pretty frequently, she thought nothing of it at first. Meanwhile, Mr. Popper had abandoned his telephoning and was now busy shaving and making himself neat in honor of being the owner of such a splendid bird as Captain Cook. Every now and then I just have to take a listen. But the penguin, though thus neglected for the moment, was by no means idle. With the unusual excitement in having to go to market earlier than usual, Mrs. Popper had not yet got around to straightening the house. She was an excellent housekeeper. Still with 2 children like Janie and Bill and a husband with such untidy ways, there is no denying the fact that she had to pick up the place rather frequently. Okay. Professional tidier. I think it's something to be proud of. Captain Cook was now attending to the picking up. She asked some help. Into the corners of every room he prowled and poked and pecked with busy thoroughness. Into every closet he stared with his white circled eyes. Under and behind all the furniture he crowded his plump figure with little subdued cries of curiosity, surprise, and pleasure. And each time he found what he seemed to be looking for, he picked it up in the black end of his red beak and carried it, waddling proudly onto his wide pink feet into the kitchen and into the icebox. At last it occurred to Mrs. Popper to wonder what on earth the busy bird was up to. When she looked, she could only scream to Mr. Popper to come quickly and see what Captain Cook had done now. Mr. Popper himself, looking rather remarkable, as Mrs. Popper noticed later, joined her in staring with astonishment into the refrigerator. Yes, I will mend this book when I'm done reading it. I didn't realize just how falling apart it is. Captain Cook came up too and helped them look. Or, he said with triumph. Mrs. Popper laughed and Mr. Popper gasped as they saw the results of Captain Cook's trips through the house. 2 spools of thread. Let me show this picture before I continue. 2 spools of thread, 1 white chess bishop. God. 6 parts of a jigsaw puzzle, a teaspoon and a closed box of safety matches, a radish, 2 pennies, a nickel, and a golf ball. 2 pencil stubs, 1 bent playing card, and a small ashtray. 5 hairpins, an olive, 2 dominoes, a sock, a nail file, 4 buttons of various sizes, a telephone slug, 7 marbles, and a tiny doll's chair. 5 checker pieces, a bit of a graham cracker, a Parcheesi cup, and a eraser, a door key, a button hook, a crumpled piece of tinfoil. Sounds like the things that I find while metal detecting in my yard. I found a horseshoe 2 days ago. Another horseshoe. Thought that was kind of cool. Half of a very old lemon, the head of a china doll, Mr. Popper's pipe, a ginger ale cap, an ink bottle cork, 2 screws, and a belt buckle. 6 beads from a child's necklace, 5 building blocks, a darning egg, a bone, a small harmonica. Just in case he wants to play a song. And a partly consumed lollipop. 2 toothpaste lids and a small red notebook. I guess this is what you call the rookery, said Mr. Popper. Only he couldn't find any stones to build his nest with. Well, said Mrs. Popper, those penguins may have heathen ways at the South Pole, but I declare I think this one is going to be quite a help around the house. Or, said Captain Cook, and strutting into the living room, he knocked over the best lamp. I think, Papa, said Mrs. Popper, that you'd better take Captain Cook outside for a little exercise. Good gracious, but you're all dressed up. Why, you almost look like a penguin yourself. Mr. Popper had smoothed down his hair and shaved off his whiskers. Never again would Mrs. Popper have to reproach him for looking as wild as a lion. He put on a white shirt with a white tie and white flannel trousers and a pair of bright tan oxblood shoes. He had got out of the cedar chest his old black evening tailcoat that he had been married in and brushed it carefully and put it on too. He did indeed look a little like a penguin. He turned and strutted like one now for Mrs. Popper. But he did not forget his duty to Captain Cook. Can I have a few yards clothesline, please? Mama, asked Mr. Popper. Oh, he asked Alicia. Leash the penguin, I suppose. Surprised she didn't care that he was wearing the suit he was married in. He looked nice, I guess. Chapter 8, Penguin's Promenade. I love that they put the first letter in the belly of the penguin at the beginning of each chapter. Cute little detail. Mr. Popper soon found that it was not so easy to take a penguin for a stroll. Captain Cook did not care at first for the idea of being put on a leash. However, Mr. Popper was firm. He tied one end of the clothesline to the penguin's fat throat and the other to his own wrist. Or, said Captain Cook indignantly. Still, he was a very reasonable sort of bird, and when he saw that protesting did him no good, he recovered his customary dignity and decided to let Mr. Popper lead him. Mr. Popper put on his best Sunday derby and opened the front door, Captain Cook waddling graciously beside him. "Gaw," said the penguin, stopping at the edge of the porch to look down the steps. Mr. Popper gave him plenty of clothesline leash. "Gawk," said Captain Cook, and raising his flippers, he leaned forward bravely and tobogganed down the steps on his stomach. Mr. Popper followed, though not in the same way. Captain Cook quickly got up on his feet again and strutted to the street ahead of Mr. Popper, with many quick turns of his head and pleased comments on the new scene. Down Proudfoot Avenue came a neighbor of the Poppers, Mrs. Callahan, with her arms full of groceries. She stared in astonishment when she saw Captain Cook and Mr. Popper, looking like a large penguin himself in his black tailcoat. "Heavens have mercy on us," she exclaimed, as the bird began to investigate the striped stockings under her house dress. It isn't an owl, and it isn't a goose." "It isn't," said Mr. Popper, tipping his Sunday derby. "It's an Antarctic penguin, Mrs. Callahan." "Get away from me," said Mrs. Callahan to Captain Cook. "An anteater, is it?" "Not an anteater," explained Mr. Popper. "Antarctic. It was sent to me from the South Pole." "Take your South Pole goose away from me at once," said Mrs. Callahan. Mr. Popper pulled obediently at the clothesline while Captain Cook took a parting peck at Miss Callahan's striped stockings. "Heavens preserve us," said Mrs. Callahan. "I must stop in and see Mrs. Popper at once. I would have never believed it. I'll be going now." "So will I," said Mr. Popper as Captain Cook dragged him off down the street. Their next stop was at the drugstore at the corner of Proudfoot Avenue and Main Street. Oh, goodness gracious. Has this ever happened to you while walking your dog? Mrs. Callahan. You liked your striped stockings. Ah, who knew? Here Captain Cook insisted on looking over the window display, which consisted of several open packages of shiny white boric crystals. These he evidently mistook for polar snow, for he began to peck at the window vigorously. Suddenly, a car wheeled to the nearby curb with a shriek of its brakes, and two young men sprang out, one of them bearing a camera. "This must be it," said the first young man to the other. "It's them, all right," said the second young man. "Here come the paparazzi! Here they come!" I'm sorry, I just dig this book. I just do, I dig this book. Okay. The cameraman set up his tripod on the sidewalk. But by this time, a small crowd had gathered around, and two men in white coats had even come out of the drugstore to watch. Captain Cook, however, was still too much interested in the window exhibits to bother to turn around. "You're Mr. Popper of 432 Proudfoot Avenue, aren't you?" asked the second young man, pulling a notebook out of his pocket. I just had an epiphany. Remind me to tell you what this epiphany was. That's the one thought I did not have yesterday. Ooh, I don't know if I'm right, but I might be. Okay. I might be. Yes, said Mr. Popper, realizing that his picture was about to be taken for the newspaper. The two young men had, as a matter of fact, heard about the strange bird from the policeman and had been on their way to the Popper house to get an interview when they saw Captain Cook. "Hey, Pelican, turn around and see the pretty birdie," said the photographer. "What? That's no pelican," said the other, who was a reporter. "Pelicans have a pouch in their bills." "I think it was a dodo. Only dodos are extinct. This will make an elegant picture, if I can ever get her to turn around." "It's a penguin," said Mr. Popper proudly. "Its name is Captain Cook." "Gook, gook, gook," said the penguin, turning around now that they were talking to him, spying the camera tripod. He walked over and examined it. "Probably think it's a three-legged stork," said the photographer. "This bird is yours?" said the reporter. "Is it a he or a she? The public will want to know." He, she, rookery. I've got a clue here. Although you would think, coming from the South Pole, and all the National Geographic explorers, the penguin would recognize what a tripod is. Don't you think? I would think they use those. Mr. Popper hesitated. "Well, I'd call it Captain Cook." "That makes it a he," said the reporter, writing rapidly in his notebook. Still curious, Captain Cook started walking round and round the tripod till the clothesline, the penguin, and Mr. Popper and the tripod were all tangled up. At the advice of one of the bystanders, the tangle was finally straightened out by Mr. Popper's walking around the tripod 3 times in the opposite direction. At last, Captain Cook, standing still beside Mr. Popper, consented to pose. Mr. Popper straightened his tie, and the cameraman snapped the picture. Captain Cook shut his eyes, and this was the way his picture appeared later in all the newspapers. Never mind. "One last question," said the reporter. "Where'd you get your strange pet?" "From Admiral Drake, the South Pole explorer. He sent him to me for a present." "Yeah," said the reporter. "Anyway, it's a good story." The two young men jumped into their car. Mr. Popper and Captain Cook continued their walk, with quite a crowd following and asking questions. The crowd was getting so thick that in order to escape, Mr. Popper led Captain Cook into a barber shop. The man who kept the barber shop had up to his time been a good friend of Mr. Popper's. In the barber shop, chapter 9. Anybody still hanging in there with me, I wonder? Typically, we would read a couple of chapters while our students began their lunch, so that this way, for the first 15 to a half an hour of time, they would focus on their food, and they would be listening. So then, after that little period of time, when the kids finished primarily what they were supposed to eat for lunch, then we would maybe throw out random questions about the chapters we just read. The kids could then openly talk and discuss, and they would have kind of a purpose for their social chit-chat. And on the days, I think Fridays were pizza days, we didn't read often on Fridays, and it was just kind of allowed more of a boisterous kind of a Friday lunch period. But this was a really cool way to open up and start lunch, and we used to read a little bit depending on whatever study we had. And the co-teacher that I had, this was for our lower elementary, she was great. We both took turns as far as reading, and I think we enjoyed it just as much as the kids did. But anyways, in case you're wondering, you probably weren't, but I thought I'd share it anyway. Right, because even older children need to hear things read aloud. I think it's just part of development and, you know, building some text in your head and things like that. Okay. It was very quiet in the barber shop, and the barber was shaving an elderly gentleman. Captain Cook found this spectacle very interesting, and in order to get a better view, he jumped up on the mirror ledge. "Good night," said the barber. The gentleman in the barber's chair, his face already white with lather, half lifted his head to see what had happened. Why did he say good night? "Cook," said the penguin, flapping his flippers and reaching out his long beak toward the lather on the gentleman's face. You know, I have a memory. I have a memory of my grandpa in the bathroom with the little bowl and thick brush and going around his face and lathering it up. And he used one of those straight edges that he sharpened like this, and he would, you know, I don't know if he went up or down, but I remember watching him. He never cut himself ever, and he did it quickly, and I remember the sound that it made. It was like, you know, like a, it was crazy, but I can even smell it. And every once in a blue moon, thinking it was funny, he would hit me with the brush and put a blob of white stuff on my face. Like, I have so many incredible memories of that man. Anyway, woo, well, that's where that took me. Let's look at the picture. Except this gentleman doesn't have a head of hair. My grandpa had a full head of white hair. Imagine he might have been considered handsome. Anyways, with a yell and a leap, the gentleman rose from his reclining position, left the barber's chair, and fled into the street, not even stopping for his coat and hat. Oh gosh, somebody else was afraid of the penguin. "Gaw," said Captain. "Hey," said the barber to Mr. Popper, "take that thing out of my shop. This is no zoo. What's the idea?" "Do you mind if I take him out your back door?" asked Mr. Popper. "Any door," said the barber, "as long as it's quick. Now it's biting the teeth off my combs." Why did he say goodnight earlier? I kind of lost. I wonder why he said goodnight earlier. Why did he say goodnight earlier? Does anybody know? Anybody paying attention? It wasn't nighttime. I don't know. Maybe it's evening? I don't think so. That's the one thing that doesn't make any sense to me right now out of this whole book. All right, we'll keep going. Repeating. "Any door," said the barber, "as long as it's quick. Now it's biting the teeth off my combs." Mr. Popper took Captain Cook in his arms, and amid cries of "Cork, cock, and ork," made his way out the shop and its back room and out a door into an alley. Captain Cook now discovered its first back stairway. Oh boy. Mr. Popper discovered that when a penguin has found steps going up somewhere, it's absolutely impossible to keep him from climbing them. "All right," said Mr. Popper, panting up the steps behind Captain Cook. "I suppose, being a bird, and one that can't fly, you have to go up in the air somehow. So you like to climb stairs. Well, it's a good thing this building has only 3 stories. Come on, let's see what you can do." Slowly but unwearingly, Captain Cook lifted one pink foot after another from one step to the next, followed by Mr. Popper and at the other end of the clothesline. At last, they came to the top landing. "Now what?" inquired Mr. Popper of Captain Cook. Finding there were no more steps to climb, Captain Cook turned around and surveyed the steps that now went down. Then he raised his flippers and leaned forward. Oh no! Mr. Popper, who was still panting for breath, had supposed the determined bird would plunge so quickly. He should have remembered that penguins will toboggan whenever they get a chance. Perhaps he had been unwise in tying one end of the clothesline to his wrist. At any rate, this time Mr. Popper found himself suddenly sliding on his own white-clad stomach down the 3 flights of steps. This delighted the penguin, who was enjoying his own slide just ahead of Mr. Popper. When they reached the bottom, Captain Cook was so eager to go up again that Mr. Popper had to call a taxi to distract him. 432 Proudfoot Avenue, said Mr. Popper to the driver. The driver, who was a kind and polite man, did not laugh at his oddly assorted passengers until he had been paid. Oh dear, said Mrs. Popper when she opened the door to her husband. You looked so neat and handsome when you started for your walk, and now look at the front of you. I'm so sorry, my love, said Mr. Popper in a humble tone, but you can't always tell what a penguin will do next. Those unpredictable birds. So saying, he went to lie down, for he was quite exhausted from all the unusual exercise, while Captain Cook had a shower and took a nap in the icebox. Chapter 10. Whee! Shadows. Next day, the picture of Mr. Popper and Captain Cook appeared in Stillwater Morning Chronicle with a paragraph about the house painter who had received a penguin by air express from Admiral Drake in the faraway Antarctic. Then the Associated Press picked up the story, and a week later the photograph in rotogravure, oh my god, I hiccup, could be seen in the Sudden edition of the most important newspapers in all the large cities in the country. It's fantastic. Naturally, the Poppers all felt very proud and happy. Captain Cook was not happy, however. He had suddenly ceased his gay, exploring little walks about the house and would sit most of the day sulking in the refrigerator. Mrs. Popper had removed all the stranger objects, leaving only the marbles and checkers, so that Captain Cook now had a nice, orderly little rookery. He won't play with us anymore, said Bill. I tried to get some of my marbles from him, and he tried to bite me. Naughty Captain Cook, said Jeanie. Better leave him alone, children, said Mrs. Popper. He feels mopey, I guess. But it was soon clear that it was something worse than mopiness that ailed Captain Cook. All day he would sit with his little white circled eyes staring out sadly from the refrigerator. His coat had lost its lovely glossy look. His round little stomach grew flatter every day. He would turn away now when Mrs. Popper would offer him some canned shrimps. One evening she took his temperature. It was 104 degrees. Well, Papa, she said, I think you had better call the veterinary doctor. I'm afraid Captain Cook is really ill. But when the veterinary came, he only shook his head. He was a very good animal doctor, and though he had never taken care of a penguin before, he knew enough about birds to see at a glance that this one was seriously ill. I will leave you some pills. Give him one every hour. Then you can try feeding him on sherbet and wrapping him in ice packs. But I cannot give you any encouragement because I'm afraid it is a hopeless case. This kind of bird was never made for this climate, you know. I can see that you have taken good care of him, but an Antarctic penguin still can't thrive in still water. Okay. That night, the Poppers sat up all night, taking turns changing the ice packs. It was no use. In the morning, Mrs. Popper took Captain Cook's temperature again, and it had gone up to 105. Everyone was very sympathetic. The reporter on the Morning Chronicle stopped in to inquire about the penguin. The neighbors brought in all sorts of broths and jellies to try to tempt the little fellow. Even Mrs. Callahan, who had never had a high opinion of Captain Cook, made a lovely frozen custard for him. Nothing did any good. Captain Cook was too far gone. Oh, this is kind of a sad photo. Hi, Elizabeth. How's it going? He slept all day now in a heavy stupor, and everyone was saying that the end was not far away. All the Poppers had grown terribly fond of the funny, solemn little chap, and Mr. Popper's heart was frozen with terror. It seemed to him that his life would be very empty if Captain Cook went away. Surely someone would know what to do for a sick penguin. He wished that there were some way of asking advice of Admiral Drake away down at the South Pole, but there was not time. In his despair, Mr. Popper had an idea. A letter had brought him his pet. He sat down and wrote another letter. It was addressed to Dr. Smith, the curator of the great aquarium in Mammoth City, the largest in the world. Surely if anyone anywhere had any idea what could cure a dying penguin, this man would. 2 days later, there was an answer from the curator. Unfortunately, he wrote, it was not easy to cure a sick penguin. Perhaps you do not know that we too have in our aquarium at Mammoth City a penguin from the Antarctic. It is failing rapidly in spite of everything we have done for it. I have wondered lately whether it is not suffering from loneliness. Perhaps that is what ails your Captain Cook. I am therefore shipping you under separate cover our penguin. You may keep her. There is just a chance that the birds may get on better together. Oh, Captain Cook is not the she. She's the she. And that is how Greta came to live at 432 Proudfoot Avenue. Greta. Elizabeth, do you like penguins? I do see like those little symbols. You put them everywhere. Okay, chapter 11. Greta. I knew a little girl named Greta. She was absolutely lovely. I think she was the only Greta that I knew as a student. Unique and very delightful. So Captain Cook did not die after all. There were 2 penguins in the refrigerator, one standing and one sitting on the nest under the ice cubes. They're as 2 peas, said Mrs. Popper. As 2 penguins, you mean, answered Mr. Popper. Yes, but which is which? Well, at this moment, the standing penguin jumped out of the icebox. Oh no, I was wrong. Reached inside and took one of the checkers from under the sitting penguin, whose eyes were closed in sleep, and laid it at Mr. Popper's feet. See, Mama, he's thanking me, said Mr. Popper, patting the penguin. Oh, not thinking, thanking. See, Mama, he's thanking me, said Mr. Popper, patting the penguin. At the South Pole, that's the way penguin shows its friendship, only it uses a stone instead of a checker. This one must be Captain Cook, and he's trying to show that he's grateful to us for getting him Greta and saving his life. Yes, but how are we going to tell them apart? It's very confusing. I will go down in the cellar and get some white paint and paint their names on their black backs. We used to do that to the turtles in our pond. We didn't cover their shells at all. We would just put a little mark, and there was 1 or 2 who we'd see again in the following spring, and some we never saw again. I would never do that now, knowing that how special the carapace is on a turtle. Like I've learned since being a child. But so when you're a kid, that's when you make those mistakes, and then that's when you're supposed to learn. Anyways, after he opened the cellar door and started down, nearly tripping when Captain Cook unexpectedly tobogganed down after him, when he came up again, Mr. Popper had a brush and a small paint can in his hands, while the penguin had a white Captain Cook on his back. Cook, said Captain Cook proudly, showing his name to the penguin in the icebox. Gaw, said the sitting penguin. And then, squirming around in her nest, she turned back to Mr. Popper. So Mr. Popper sat down on the floor in front of the icebox while Captain Cook watched, first with one eye and then with the other. What are you going to call her? Asked Mrs. Popper. A Greta. It's a nice name, said Mrs. Popper, and she seems like a nice bird, too. But the 2 of them fill the icebox, and pretty soon there will be eggs. And the next thing you know, the icebox won't be big enough for your penguins. Besides, you haven't done a thing about how I'm going to keep the food cold. I will, my love, promised Mr. Popper. It's already pretty cold for the middle of October, and it will soon be cold enough outside for Captain Cook and Greta. Oh, that's right. Yes, said Mr. Popper, but if you keep them outside the house, they might run away. Mama, said Mr. Popper, you put your food back in that icebox tonight, and we will just keep Greta and Captain Cook in the house. Captain Cook can help me move the nest into the other room. Then I will open up all the windows, and I will leave them open, and the penguins will be comfortable. They will be comfortable, all right, said Mrs. Popper, but what about us? I spent a few days seeing my breath in this house this winter. Nothing like the Antarctic, but definitely chilling. Hey, what you doing? Ah, you have a really great smile. What was he doing? Does anybody know what he was doing? I know what he was doing. It wasn't very nice. Anyways, then I will open up all the windows. "Ah, but what about us? We can wear our winter overcoats and hats in the house," said Mr. Popper. And as he got up to go around and open all the windows, "It certainly is colder," says Mrs. Popper as she's sneezing. The next few days were even colder, but the Poppers soon got used to sitting around in their overcoats. Yeah. Kind of a pain in the ass to have to get out of snow pants to use the toilet. I'm just going to tell you, it was a pain in the ass. No pun intended. Greta and Captain Cook always occupied the chairs nearest the open windows. One night, quite early in November, there was a blizzard, and when the Poppers got up in the morning, there were large drifts of snow all over the house. Woo! Mrs. Mrs. Popper wanted to get her broom and have Mr. Popper bring his snow shovel to clear away the drifts. But the penguins were having so much fun in the snow that Mr. Popper insisted it should be left where it was. In fact, he even went so far as to bring an old garden hose up from the basement and sprinkle all the floors that night until the water was an inch deep. And by the next morning, all of the Popper floors were covered, with smooth ice, with snow drifts around the edges near the open windows. Both Greta and Captain Cook were tremendously pleased with all that ice. They would go up onto the snowdrift at one end of the living room and run down one behind the other onto the ice until they were running too fast to keep their balance. Then they would flop on their stomachs and toboggan across the slippery ice. This amused Bill and Janie so much they tried it too, on their stomachs in their overcoats. This in turn pleased the penguins greatly, and Mr. Popper moved all the furniture in the living room to one side so that the penguins and the children would have plenty of room for real sliding. It was a little hard at first to move the furniture because the feet of the chairs had frozen into the ice. Memory from here. I remember, I can't mention any names, but filling the bottom of the basement staircase with every blanket and pillow, even from the couches that we could find, and then sliding down, I don't know if it was a piece of cardboard, it was something, down the stairs into the pile of blankets. It was like something that we did just for fun. You know, back when we were kids in the 70s, I mean, you came up with some funny things to do. We didn't have that internet business. We didn't have that business. And if it wasn't Saturday morning, we didn't have Cartoon Network either. So we came up with some ridiculously things to do. Oftentimes, parents had no idea we had done it. But I don't know. I can remember finally doing it with friends that I used to have. It had to have been 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, maybe. I want to say that was the age range. Before the friendships ended. Yeah, that reminds me of that's kind of cute. Look how funny. How funny. I also remember when kids were allowed to bring their sleds to school. And on a winter day when there was nice snow, they could actually have some fun in it. Hey, Elizabeth, would you keep me updated, please? Toward afternoon, the weather got warmer, and the ice began to melt. Now Papa said Mrs. Popper, "You really must do something. We can't go on like this." But Captain Cook and Greta are both fat and sleek, and the children have never been so rosy. "It may be very healthy," said Mrs. Popper as she mopped up the floor, "but it's simply untidy." Oh, this must have been driving her crazy. "I will do something about it tomorrow," said Mr. Popper. This is how I am by the door, because everything blows in, but I like to keep the door open, so it's so stressful. Not really. I sweep it out. Okay, here we are. Chapter 12. Oh, yay! More mouths to feed, as I crack the book even more. So the next day, Mr. Popper called an engineer and had a large freezing plant installed in the cellar. Yes! And took Captain Cook and Greta down there to live. Then he had the furnace taken out and moved upstairs into the living room. It looked very odd there, but as Mrs. Popper said, it was a relief at least not to have to wear their overcoats all the time. Good thinking, Mr. Popper. Mr. Popper was quite worried when he found that all their changes were going to be very expensive. Refrigerating engineer was worried too, when he found that Mr. Popper had practically no money. However, Mr. Popper promised to pay as soon as he could, and the man let him have everything on credit. Well, good job, a serviceman who actually understands. It was a good thing that Mr. Popper got the penguins moved when he did, because Mrs. Popper had been right about the eggs. The rookery had scarcely been moved to the basement when Greta laid the first egg. 3 days later, the second one appeared. Since Mr. Popper knew that penguins lay only 2 eggs a season, he was astonished when a little later the third egg was found under Greta. Yay! Whether the change in climate had changed the penguins' breeding habits, Mr. Popper never knew, but every day, every third day, a new one would appear until there were 10 in all. Wow. Now, penguin eggs are large, so, I don't know, 10, I guess, in a rookery. Because different types of penguins lay different numbers of eggs. So I did find a penguin book. Maybe we'll take a look at that. We'll look up some facts when we're done with this story. Now, penguin eggs are so large that the mother can sit on only 2 at a time. And this created quite a problem. Mr. Popper solved it, however, by distributing the extra eggs under hot water bottles and electric heating pads, kept just at penguin body heat. Gosh, this Mr. Popper was smarter than anybody ever gave him credit for. Look what's happening, look what's happening. Oh my gosh, this poor book. Yay! Oh, pardon me. The penguin chicks, when they began to hatch, were not so handsomely marked as their mother and father. They were fuzzy, droll little creatures who grew at a tremendous rate. Captain Cook and Greta were kept very busy bringing food to them, though of course the Poppers all helped too. Mr. Popper, who had always been such a great reader, had no difficulty in thinking of names for the penguin children. They were Nelson, Columbus, Louisa, Jenny, Scott, Magellan, Adelina, Isabella, Ferdinand, and Victoria. Still, he was rather relieved that there were no more than 10 to name. Mrs. Popper, too, thought this was about enough penguins for anybody, though they really did not make much difference to her and her housework, as long as Mr. Popper and the children remembered to close the cellar door in the kitchen. The penguins all loved to climb the stairs that led up to the kitchen, never knew when to stop unless they found the kitchen door closed. Then, of course, they would turn around and toboggan down the steps again. This made rather a curious noise sometimes, and when Mrs. Popper was working in the kitchen, but she got, page 77, but she got used to it. And she got used to so many other strange things this winter. Did you hear that? The freezing plant that Mr. Popper had got for the penguins downstairs was a large and good one. It made very large blocks of ice instead of small ice cubes, so that soon Mr. Popper had made sort of an ice castle down there for the 12 penguins to live in and climb over. Mr. Popper also dug a large hole in the cellar floor and made a swimming and diving pool for the birds. I called them friends. From time to time, he would throw a live fish into the pool for the penguins to dive for. They found this very refreshing because, to tell the truth, they had gotten a little tired of the canned shrimps. The live fish were specially ordered and were brought all the way from the coast, in tank cars and glass boxes to the 432 Proudfoot Avenue. Unfortunately, they were quite expensive. It was nice that there were so many penguins because when 2 of them, usually Nelson and Columbus, got into a fight and began to spar at each other with their flippers, the 10 other penguins would all crowd around to watch the fight and make encouraging remarks. This made a very interesting little scene. Better get your phones out. I cannot help myself. I'm so sorry. Let's not stop the fight. Let's watch it. Mr. Popper also flooded a part of the cellar floor for an ice rink, and here the penguins often drilled like a sort of small army. Oh yes, and fantastic marching movements. This is where the story gets a little exciting. And parades around the ice. The penguin Louisa seemed especially fond of leading these little marching drills. It was quite a sight to see them. after Mr. Popper had the idea of training Louisa to hold a small American flag in her beak while she proudly led the solemn parades. Janie and Bill would often bring their little friends home from school with them, and they would all go down and watch the penguins for hours. At night, instead of sitting and reading and smoking his pipe in the living room, as he had done before, Mr. Popper would put on his overcoat and take things downstairs. There he would sit and read with his mittens on, looking up from time to time to see what his pets were doing. He often thought about the cold, distant regions in which the little creatures really belonged. He wasn't a bad man. He understood. Often, too, he thought how different his life had been before the penguins had come to keep him occupied. It was January now, and already he dreaded to think of the time when spring would come, and he would have to leave them all day and go back to his painting houses. Chapter 13, Money Worries. There came a night, however, when Mrs. Popper, having put the children to bed, stopped by Mr. Popper on his way to the cellar. "Papa," she said, "I must talk to you. Come and sit down." "Yes, my love," said Mr. Popper. "What is on your mind?" "Papa," said Mrs. Popper, "I'm glad to see you having such a nice vacation. And I must say that it has been easier than usual to keep the place tidy with you down in the basement all the time. But, Papa, what are we to do for money?" "What is the trouble?" asked Mr. Popper. "Well, of course the penguins have to eat. But have you any idea what the bills for all those live fish are? I'm sure I don't know how we're ever going to pay for them. And the engineer who put in the basement freezing plant keeps ringing the doorbell and asking for his money." "Is our money all gone?" asked Mr. Popper quietly. "Practically all. Of course, when it's all gone, maybe we could eat the 12 penguins for a while." "Oh, no, Mama," said Mr. Popper. "You don't mean that, do you?" "Well, I don't suppose I really could enjoy eating them, especially Greta and Isabella," said Mrs. Popper. "It would break the children's hearts, too." And Mr. Popper, he sat there thoughtfully for quite a while. "I have an idea, Mama," he said at last. "Maybe we could sell them to somebody, and then we would have a little money to live on," said Mrs. Popper. "No," said Mr. Popper, "I have a better idea. We'll keep the penguins, Mama. You have heard of trained seals acting in theaters." "Of course I have heard of trained seals," answered Mrs. Popper. I have even saw some once. They balanced balls on the ends of their noses." "Very well then," said Mr. Popper. "If there can be trained dogs and trained seals, why can't there be trained penguins?" "Perhaps you are right, Papa." "Of course I am right. And you can help me train the penguins." The next day, they had the piano moved down into the basement at one end of the ice rink. Mrs. Popper had not played the piano since she had married Mr. Popper, but with a little practice, she soon began to remember some of the pieces she had forgotten. What these penguins like to do most. What these penguins like to do most, said Mr. Popper, is to drill like an army, to watch Nelson and Columbus get in a fight with each other, and to climb up steps and down and toboggan down. And so we will build our act around these tricks. They don't need costumes anyway, said Mrs. Popper, looking at the droll little figures. Wait a minute. They already have a costume. Oh, true enough. So Mrs. Popper picked out 3 different tunes to play on the basement piano, one for each different kind of act. And soon the penguins knew from hearing the music just what they were to do. Does this remind you of anybody? Maybe Mr. Pavlov? Oh, look, I had 2 chatters for a moment. Yeah! Where did you go? Come on back. It's Mr. Popper's penguins. Oh, man. Hang on a second. Hang on a second. Pardon me. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, I'm back. Oh, wait. While I'm here. Always nice to be able to see. I hope somebody is enjoying this story. I am. And I'm doing, just so you know, I'm doing an incredible job of biting my lip right now. There are so many thoughts that are invading this story in my head. There are so many thoughts, so many pertinent points that I would love to make. I'm just only hoping that anyone who's listening, their brain is also realizing how many lessons there are. Only up to literally chapter 13, 14 in this story. I mean, how many things that I have read from this book alone have made you think about how you live and how you could live differently and how we treat the earth and the animals in it and how important things are addressed and or not addressed. I'm going to continue. And oh, while you're at it, read the chat. It's really it's enlightening today. I wish there was more. You might as well use my channel as a platform to express your negative selves. I mean, why not? Anyways, those who are positive, you know how much I appreciate you. Okay, let me continue. Oh, so she's playing the piano. Where were we? Ah, here we go. So Mrs. Popper picked out 3 different tunes to play on the basement piano, one for each kind of act. Soon the penguins knew from hearing the music just what they were to do. When they were supposed to parade like a lot of soldiers, Mrs. Popper played Schubert's Military March. Ugh. When Nelson and Columbus were to fight each other with their flippers, Mrs. Popper played the Merry Widow Waltz. I think I used a waltz once in one of my shorts for the dogs wrestling. Of course, it was slow motion, so it fit. It was probably pretty cool. At least to me, I find that stuff amusing. Okay, when the penguins were supposed to climb in toboggan, Janie and Bill would drag out into the middle of the ice 2 portable stepladders and a board that Mr. Popper had used when he was decorating houses. Then Mrs. Popper would play a pretty descriptive piece called By the Brook. It was cold in the cellar, of course, so that Mrs. Popper had to learn to play the piano with her gloves on. By the end of January, Mr. Popper was sure the penguins were ready to appear in any theater in the country. So I got to ask you, if somebody does not want me to pick up on their identity and they already know that I can recognize their hands, how would they hide their identity? Common sense tells you how. Really? Really? This is the stuff I don't understand. Aren't you smarter than that? I mean, I listen. Aren't you smarter than that? God, you know, Anyways, wearing gloves is not making a difference. And you look a little silly doing the activity you're doing with gloves on. But if you think it's helping to hide who you are, by all means, keep those gloves on. I'm flexible. I'm not going to tell you to take them off. To me, they look a little silly, and I hope I'm not hurting your feelings. But the fact that you're still doing what you're doing with the addition of gloves, to me, is the silly part. Right? That's what I thought. Okay. We're on to a new chapter. Mr. Greenbaum. Are we ready? We haven't met this character yet, have we? No, we have not. Do we know this character? Yes, we do. Look here, said Mr. Popper at breakfast one morning. It says here in the Morning Chronicle that Mr. Greenbaum, the owner of the Palace Theater, is in town. He's got a string of theaters all over the country. So I guess we had better go down and see him. That evening, it was Saturday, the 29th of January, and the Popper family and their 12 trained penguins, 2 of them carrying flags in their beaks, left the house to find the Palace Theater. Oh, I love it. The penguins were now so well trained that Popper decided that it was not necessary to keep them on leashes. Instead, they walked to the bus line very nicely in the following line of march. First, Mr. Popper, then Greta and Captain Cook, then Columbus and Victoria, then Mrs. Popper, of course with her musical notes under arm. We've got Nelson and Jenny, Magellan and Adelina, Bill Popper and Janie Popper, Scott and Isabella, Ferdinand and Louisa. Got all of them? 2, 4, 6, yep. Look at this cute little parade. We're on our way to the bus stop in a nice, orderly fashion. I think these illustrations are just right. So the bus stopped at the corner, and before the astonished driver could protest, they had all climbed on the bus, and the bus was on its way. Do I pay half fare for the birds, or do they go free? Asked Mr. Popper. Janie goes half fare, but I'm 10, said Bill. Hush, said Mrs. Popper, as she and the children found their seats. The penguins followed in an orderly fashion. Say, mister, said the driver, where do you think you're going with this exhibit? With that exhibit? Downtown, said Mr. Popper. Here, let's call it 50 cents and let it go at that. To tell the truth, I lost count when they went past me, said the driver. It's a trained penguin act, explained Mr. Popper. Are they really birds? Asked the driver. Oh, yes, said Mr. Popper. I'm just taking them down to the palace to interview Mr. Greenbaum, the big theater owner. Well, if I hear any complaints, off they go at the next corner, said the driver. Fair enough, said Mr. Popper, who wanted to ask for transfers in that case, but decided to let well enough alone. The penguins were behaving very well. They were sitting quietly, 2 in a seat, while the other passengers looked on. Sorry, said Mr. Popper, addressing everyone in the bus, but I'll have to open all the windows. These are our Antarctic penguins, and they're used to having they are used to having it a lot colder than this. It took Mr. Popper quite a while to open the windows, which were stuck fast. When he had succeeded, there were plenty of remarks from the other passengers. Many of them began to complain to the driver, who told Mr. Popper to take the birds off the bus. He had to repeat this several times. Finally, he refused to take the bus further until Mr. Popper got off. By this time, however, the bus had got so far downtown that none of them minded having to get out into the street. Only a block ahead of them shone the lights of the Palace Theater. Hello, said the theater manager as the Poppers and the penguins trooped past him. Sure, Mr. Greenbaum's here in the office. You know, I've heard about these birds of yours, but I didn't really believe it, said Mr. Greenbaum, meeting the Popper penguins. I'll be leaving you. I've got to go backstage. The penguins, now standing politely in 2 rows of 6 each, looked curiously at Mr. Greenbaum. Their 24 white circled eyes were very solemn. All of you people crowding around the door, go back where you belong, said Mr. Greenbaum. This is a private conference. Then he got up to shut the door. The Poppers sat down while Mr. Greenbaum walked up and down the double row of penguins, looking them over. It looks like an act, he said. Oh, it's an act all right, said Mr. Popper. It's Popper's Performing Penguins. First time on any stage, direct from the South Pole. He and Mrs. Popper had thought up this name for the act. Couldn't we call them Popper's Pink-Toed Penguins? Asked Mr. Greenbaum. Mr. Popper thought for a moment. No, he said. I'm afraid we couldn't. That sounds too much like the chorus girls or ballet dancers, and these birds are pretty serious. I don't think they'd even like it. All right, said Mr. Greenbaum. Show me the act. There's music to it, said Janie. Mama plays the piano. Is that true, madame? Asked Mr. Greenbaum. Yes, sir, answered Mrs. Popper. Well, there's a piano behind you, said Mr. Greenbaum. You may begin, madame. I want to see this act. If it's any good, you people have come to the right place, and I've got theaters from coast to coast. But first, let's see your penguins perform. Are you ready, madame? Ooh, we'd better move the furniture first, said Bill. Chapter 15, Popper's Performing Penguins. Oh, do get ready. At that moment, they were interrupted by the manager, who came in with a groan. "What's the matter?" asked Mr. Greenbaum. "The marvelous Marcos, who closed the program, haven't turned up, and the audience are demanding their money back." "What are you going to do?" asked Mr. Greenbaum. "Give it to them, I suppose. And here it is, Saturday night, the biggest night of the week. I hate to think of losing all that money." "I have an idea," said Mrs. Popper. "Maybe you won't have to lose it. As long as it's the end of the program, why don't we just have the Penguins rehearse in there on a real stage? We have more room, and I think the audience would enjoy it." "Huh. All right," said the manager. "Let's try it." So the Penguins had their first rehearsal on a real stage. The manager stepped out onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, raising his hand, "with your kind indulgence, we are going to try a little novelty number tonight. Owing to unforeseen circumstances, the marvelous Marcos are unable to appear. We're going to let you see a rehearsal of the Popper performing Penguins instead. I thank you." In a dignified way, the Poppers and the Penguins walked out on stage, and Mrs. Popper sat down at the piano. "Aren't you going to take off your gloves to play?" asked the manager. "Oh, no," says Mrs. Popper. "I'm so used to playing with them that I'll keep them on, if you don't mind." "I don't mind. I just think it's silly." Then she started Schubert's Military March. The Penguins began to drill very nicely, wheeling and changing their formations with great precision until Mrs. Popper stopped playing in the middle of the piece. The audience clapped vigorously. "Oh, there's more to it," explained Mrs. Popper. "Half to the manager and half to the audience, where they form a hollow square and march in that formation. It's so late, we'll skip that tonight and jump to the second part." You sure you don't want to take your gloves off, madame?" asked the manager. Mrs. Popper smilingly shook her head and began the Merry Widow Waltz. 10 of the Penguins now formed in a semicircle as Nelson and Columbus in their midst put on a wild sparring contest. Their round black heads leaned far back so that they could watch each other with both round white eyes. "Gork," said Nelson, punching Columbus in the stomach with his right flipper and then trying to push him over with his left flipper. This reminds me of one of my shorts where the passed on Mr. Puffin pushes Nancy off the table for no apparent reason. I don't even know why that happened, but it was hilarious. And it was definitely an improv. Oh my gosh, I'm losing pages left and right. "Gah," said Columbus, going into a clinch and hanging his head over Nelson's shoulder as he tried to punch him in the back. "Hey, no fair," said the manager. Columbus and Nelson broke loose as the other 10 Penguins, looking on, applauded with their flippers. Columbus now sparred politely with Nelson until Nelson hit him on the eye, whereupon Columbus retreated with a loud "Ork!" and the other Penguins began to clap, and the audience joined them. As Mrs. Popper finished the waltz, both Nelson and Columbus stopped fighting, put down their flippers, and stood still facing each other. "Well, which bird won? Who's ahead?" shouted the audience. "Cook," said all the 10 Penguins in the semicircle. This must have meant look, for Nelson turned to look at them, and Columbus immediately punched him in the stomach with one flipper and knocked him down with the other. Nelson lay there with his eyes closed. Okay. On the road. Next chapter. Sorry. Let me try that again. Okay. During the next day, there was much to be done at 432 Proudfoot Avenue. There were new clothes to buy for all of them and the old ones to pack away in the mothballs. Then Mrs. Popper had to scrub and polish. I lied. This page doesn't belong here. 106. Get where you belong. I was going to say, the act is not over. Goodness, I'm fired. Fire me. I was going to say, they still have more of their act. I got carried away. Damn page out of place. All right, here we go. Da-da-da. Columbus then counted 10 over the prostrate Nelson, and again, the 10 other Penguins applauded. That's part of the act, explained Janie. The other Penguins all like Columbus to win, and so they all say "gook" at the end. That always makes Nelson look away so Columbus can sock him good. Tricky, tricky, tricky. Nelson now rose to his feet, and all the penguins formed in a row and bowed to the manager. "Thank you," said the manager, bowing back. "Now comes part 3, said Mr. Popper. "Oh, Papa," said Mrs. Popper, "you forgot to bring the 2 painting stepladders and the board." "That's all right," said the manager. "I'll get the stagehands to bring some." In no time at all, the pair of ladders and a board were brought in, and Mr. Popper and the children showed them how the ladders had to be set up with the board resting on top. Then Mrs. Popper began playing the pretty descriptive piece, "By the Brook." At this point in the act, the penguins always forgot their discipline and got dreadfully excited. They would all begin shoving at once to see which could be the first to climb the ladders. However, the children had always told Mr. Popper that the act was all the funnier for this pushing and scrambling, and Mr. Popper supposed it was. So now, with a great deal of squawking, the penguins fought and climbed the ladders and ran across the board in complete confusion, often knocking each other entirely off the floor below, and then hurrying to toboggan down the other ladder and knock off any penguins who were trying to climb up. This part of the act was very wild and noisy in spite of Mrs. Popper's delicate music. The manager and the audience were all holding their sides laughing. At last, Mrs. Popper got to the end of the music and took off her gloves. "You'll have to get those ladders off the stage, or I'll never get the birds under control," said Mr. Popper. "The curtain is supposed to fall at this point." Just penguins being penguins, I suppose, right? So the manager gave the signal for the curtain to go down, and the audience stood up and cheered. When the ladders had been taken away, the manager had 12 ice cream cones brought in for the penguins. Then Janie and Bill began to cry, so the manager ordered several more, and everyone had one. Mrs. Greenbaum was the first to congratulate the Poppers. "I don't mind telling you, Mr. Popper, that I think you've got something absolutely unique in those birds. Your act is a sensation, and the way you helped out my friend, the manager here, shows that you're real troopers, the kind we need in the show business. I'd like to predict that your penguins will soon be packing the biggest theaters from Oregon to Maine. And now to come to terms, Mr. Popper," he continued. "How about a 10-week contract at $5,000 a week?" "Is that all right, Mama?" asked Mr. Popper. "Yes, that's very satisfactory," answered Mrs. Popper. "Well done," said Mr. Greenbaum. "Just sign these papers and be ready to open next Thursday in Seattle." "And thanks again," said the manager. "Would you mind putting on your gloves again for just a minute, Mrs. Popper? I'd like you to start playing the military march again to let the penguins parade for a minute. I want to get my ushers in here to look at those birds. It would be a lesson to them." Oh, did I lose all my listeners? During the next day, there was much to be done at 432. I finally got to the page I read accidentally. To be done at 432 Proudfoot Avenue. There were new clothes to buy for them all, and the old ones to pack away with mothballs. Then Mrs. Popper had to scrub and polish and straighten the whole place, for she was much too good a housekeeper to leave everything at 6s and 7s while the Poppers were away. Mrs. Greenbaum sent them their first week's pay in advance. The first thing they did, of course, was to pay off the man. Woo! Here we go. Run away. Okay, I'm back. Jeez Louise. Who installed the freezing plant in the basement. He had been getting rather uneasy about his money, and after all, without him, they could have never trained the penguins. Next, they sent a check to the company who had been shipping the fresh fish all the way from the coast. At last, everything was done, and Mr. Popper turned the key in the door of the little house. They were all a little late in arriving at the railway station on account of the argument with the traffic policeman. The argument was on account of the accident the two taxi cabs. With 4 poppers and 12 penguins, not to mention the 8 suitcases and a pail of water with a live fish for the penguins' lunch, Mr. Popper found that they could not all fit in one cab, so they had to call a second one. Each of the taxi drivers were eager to be the first to get to the station and surprise the people by opening the door of his cab and letting out 6 penguins, so they raced each other all the way. And in the last block, they tried to pass each other, and one of the fenders got torn off. People acting ridiculous. Hi. Hello. Hi. Hi. Thanks for listening. Do you need something? Un momento. Okay, I got you. Good girl. Go ahead, sweetie. Ooh, is it raining today? Yes, I know. Okay. That might actually help. Oh, where did I put it? Put it down? Don't carry things around, put them anywhere. Lose them. Oh my gosh. You go ahead. Here. Did she come back? What I got for you. You're welcome. Okay. Go ahead, that's for you. Go have it. Go have it. Okay, can I trust you? Say sometimes. Okay, hopefully. We'll see. Okay. Sorry. Life goes on without me. Anyways, let me continue. Where were we? Oh, yeah. Careless taxi drivers. All right, I'm going to put this part of the book down so I don't keep dropping it. Whoa! Okay. Hang in there. The traffic officer naturally got very much annoyed. The train was about to pull out of the station when they arrived, even with both taxi drivers helping them through the gate and over the brass rails onto the rear observation platform. They barely made it. The penguins were gasping. It had been decided that Mr. Popper should ride in the baggage car with the penguins to keep them from getting nervous, while Mrs. Popper and the children should ride in one of the Pullmans. Because of getting on at the observation end of the train, Mr. Popper had to take birds through the whole length of the train. It was easy enough to get them through the club car, even with the pail of fish to carry. In the sleeping cars, however, where the porter was already making up some of the berths, there were trouble. The porter's ladders offered too much temptation to the penguins. They were a dozen happy orcs from a dozen ecstatic. They just want to climb. A dozen ecstatic beaks. Popper's performing penguins, completely forgetting their discipline, fought to climb the ladders and get into the upper berths. Poor Mr. Popper. One old lady screamed that she was going to get off the train, whether it was going 90 miles an hour or not. A gentleman's wearing a clergy collar, suggesting opening a window so that the penguins could jump out. I can't. I wish I would have liked to met Mr. and Mrs. Atwater, the people who wrote this book. I bet I would have enjoyed a cup of tea with them. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know if they only know. They only knew if they only knew. How do you say this expression? Two porters tried to shoo the birds out of the berths. Finally, the conductor and the brakeman with a lantern came to the rescue. It was quite a while before Mr. Popper got his pet safely into the baggage car. Mrs. Popper worried a little at the start over the idea of having Janie and Bill miss 10 weeks of school while they were on the road, though the children did not seem to mind. And you must remember, my love, said Mr. Popper. Listen, children having a real-life moment is probably just as important, if not equally important, as going to school. That's all I have to say. And you must remember, my love, said Mr. Popper, who had never been out of Stillwater in spite of his dreams of distant countries, that travel is very broadening. I would have had an absolute blast if this was happening and I was in a train car. Train trips are kind of fun. From the start, the Penguins were a riotous success. Even their opening performance in Seattle went off without a hitch, probably because they had already rehearsed on a real stage. It was here that the Penguins added a little novelty number of their own to the program. They were the first thing on the bill. When they finished their regular act, the audience went wild. They clapped and stamped and roared for more of Popper's performing penguins. Janie and Bill helped their father herd the penguins off the stage so that the next act could go on. This next act was a tightrope walker named Monsieur Duval. The trouble was that instead of watching him from the wings, as they should have done, the penguins got interested and walked out on the stage again to watch him more closely. Unfortunately, at this moment, Monsieur Duval was doing a very difficult dance on the wire overhead. The audience, of course, had thought that the penguins were all through and were very much pleased to see... Very much pleased to see them return and line up with their backs to the audience and look up at Monsieur Duval, dancing so carefully on the wire above them. This made everyone laugh so hard that Monsieur Duval lost his balance. "Orcs!" said the penguins, waddling away hurriedly in order not to be under him when he fell. Cleverly recovering his balance, Monsieur Duval caught the wire by the inside of his elbow and saved himself. He was very angry when he saw the Popper performing penguins opening wide their 12 red beaks as they were laughing at him. "Go away, you stupid things," he said to them in French. "Orcs," said the penguins, pretending not to understand and making remarks to each other in penguin language about Monsieur Duval. And whenever they appeared, the more they interfered with them, with the other acts on the program, the better the audiences liked them. "Hey, boo, come here. Come here. Come here. Here you go, babe. You're welcome. You're welcome. That's for you. Go ahead." Moving on. Is that for the right beat? Okay. In case you're wondering, we're reading Mr. Popper's Penguins. Oh, that doesn't sound good. Oh boy. This one is titled Fame. The bird soon became so famous that whenever it was known that the Popper performing penguins were to appear at any theater, the crowds would stand in a line for half a mile down the street, waiting their turn to buy tickets. The other actors on the program were not always pleased, however. Once in Minneapolis, a celebrated lady opera singer got very much annoyed when she heard that the Popper Penguins were to appear on the same program. In fact, she refused to go on stage unless the penguins were put away. So the stagehands helped Mr. and Mrs. Popper and the children get the birds off stage and downstairs to the basement under the stage, while the manager guarded the stage entrance to make sure that the penguins did not get past. Down in the basement, the birds soon discovered another little flight of steps going up. And in another minute, the audience was shrieking with laughter as the penguins' heads suddenly appeared, one by one, in the orchestra pit where the musicians were playing. The musicians kept on playing, like they should. The show must go on. Oh, I applaud that. That's fantastic. Oh. Now you're thinking of the scene in the Titanic where it's going down, unfortunately, and the band keeps playing. I mean, music is just one of those things. I'm telling you, I couldn't even get it out of what I'm doing today. It's everywhere. I love it. Okay, so the musicians kept on playing, and the lady on stage, when she saw the penguins, sang all the louder to show how angry she was. The audience was laughing so hard that nobody could hear the words of her song. Mr. Popper, who had followed the penguins up the stairs, stopped when he saw that it led to the orchestra pit. I don't think I'm supposed to go up there with the musicians, he told Mrs. Popper. The penguins did, said Mrs. Popper. Oh, to be a penguin. Papa, you better get them off there before they start biting the pegs and the strings off the fiddles, said Bill. Oh, dear. I just don't know what to do, said Mr. Popper, sitting down helplessly on the top step. Well, it's turned into just a comedy, hasn't it? Yeah. Then I will catch the penguins, said Mrs. Popper, climbing up past him with Janie and Bill following. When they saw Mrs. Popper coming after them, the penguins felt very guilty because they knew they did not belong there. So they jumped up onto the stage, ran over the footlights, and hid under the singing lady's blue skirt. Oh, that stopped the singing entirely, except for one high-pitched shrill note that had not been written in the music. Wallow. The birds loved the bright lights of the theater and the great laughing audiences and all the traveling. There was always something new to see. From Stillwater out to the Pacific coast they traveled. It was a long way now to the little house at 432 Proudfoot Avenue, where the Poppers had to worry about whether their money would hold out until spring. And every week they got a check for $5,000. When they were not actually playing in some theater or traveling on trains between cities, their life was spent in larger hotels. Now and then, a startled hotel keeper would object to having the birds register there. Why, we don't even allow lapdogs in this hotel, he would say. Yes, but do you have any rule against penguins, Mr. Popper would ask. And the hotel keeper would have to admit that there was no rule at all about penguins. And of course, when he saw how neat the penguins were and how other guests came to his hotel in hopes of seeing them, he was very glad to have them. You might think that a large hotel would offer a great many opportunities for mischief to a lot of penguins, but they behaved very well on the whole, never doing anything worse than riding up and down too often in the elevators and occasionally biting, the brass buttons off some, hey, oh boys, hey, control that tail. Okay. Did one smack for the road. What am I gonna call you? Columbus? Absolutely not. Go somewhere with yourself for a minute. I'm almost done. Do you believe it? Go. Go. Yes, that was your tail. Who needs 10 penguins when you have dogs? All right. Well, $5,000 a week may sound like a great deal of money, and yet the Poppers were far from rich. It was quite expensive to live in grand hotels and travel about towns in taxicabs. Mr. Popper often thought that the penguins could just as well have walked back and forth between hotels and theaters. But every one of their walks looked so much like a parade that it was always tied that it always tied up the traffic. So Mr. Popper, who never liked to be a nuisance to anyone, always took taxis instead. It was expensive to have huge cakes of ice brought up to their hotel rooms to cool the penguins. The bills in the fine restaurants where the Poppers often took their meals were often dreadfully high. Fortunately, however, the Penguins' food had stopped being an expense to them. On the road, they had given up having tank cars of live fish shipped to them because it was so hard to get the deliveries on time. So they went back to feeding the birds on canned shrimps. This cost them absolutely nothing, for Mr. Popper had written a testimonial saying Poppers performing penguins thrive on Owen's oceanic shrimp. This statement, with a picture of the 12 penguins, was printed in all the leading magazines, and the Owens Oceanic Shrimp Company gave Mr. Popper an order that was good for free cans of shrimps at any grocery store anywhere in the country. Anyone getting this part of this? Anyone? Anyone at all grasping the concept going on here? Anyone? Anyone? The chat's gotten quiet. Anyone? Oh, no, that's right, because there's no one in the chat. Anyone? I'm sorry. But I really hope that you are hearing all the amazing thoughtfulness that went into this story. I mean, everybody always wants to read fancy stuff, but children's books are just amazing. They're just amazing. You have to assume that there are always lessons. And I don't know, when was this one written? (1938). Renewed in 1966, but 1938. Look at all the concepts. It's starting to remind me of my Broadway plays. We were not a society who didn't know better a long time ago. A long time ago. Anybody? Anybody? I don't know. Several other companies, such as the Great Western Spinach Growers Association and the Energetic Breakfast Oats Company, wanted him to recommend their product to, and offered him large sums of cash. But the Penguins simply refused to eat spinach or oats, and Mr. Popper was much too honest to say that they would, even though he knew the money would come in handy. Good job, Mr. Popper. That's called integrity, right? Yeah, a little bit. At least they ate the shrimp. At least they ate the shrimp. From the Pacific coast, they turned east again to cross the continent. They had time enough on this brief tour to touch only the larger cities. After Minneapolis, they played Milwaukee, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and Philadelphia. Wherever they went, their reputation traveled ahead of them. When early in April they reached Boston, huge crowds awaited them in the railway station. Up to now, it had not been too difficult to keep the Penguins comfortable. But a warm spring wind was blowing across Boston Common. And at the hotel, Mr. Popper had to have ice brought up to his rooms and 1,000-pound cakes. He was glad that the 10-week contract was almost up, and that the next week, when his birds were to appear in New York, was the last. Already Mr. Greenbaum was writing a new contract for Mr. Popper, beginning to think, however, that he had better be getting back to Stillwater, for the Penguins were growing irritable. Yeah, you know. April winds. Well, here we are in spring. This is how I felt, Rube. If it was unseasonably warm in Boston, it was actually hot in New York. In their rooms at the Great Tower Hotel overlooking Central Park, the Penguins were feeling the heat badly. Mr. Popper took them up to the roof garden to catch whatever cool breeze might be blowing. The Penguins were all charmed by the sparkling lights and the confusion of the city below. The younger birds began crowding over the edge of the roof and looking down at the great canyons beneath them. It made Mr. Popper very nervous to see them shoving each other, as if at any moment they might succeed in pushing one over. He remembered how the South Pole penguins always did this to find out what the danger lay below. The roof was not a safe place for them. Mr. Popper had never forgotten how badly frightened he had been when Captain Cook had been so ill before Greta came. He couldn't risk the chance of losing one of his penguins now. Where the penguins were concerned, nothing was ever too much trouble for him. He took them downstairs again and bathed them under the cold showers in the bathroom. This kept him busy a large part of the night. With all this lack of sleep, he was quite drowsy the next morning, when he had to call the taxis to get to the theater. Besides, Mr. Popper had always been a little absent-minded. That's how he made his great mistake when he said to the first taxi driver, Regal Theater. "Yes, sir," said the driver, threading his way in and out of traffic of Broadway, which greatly interested both the children and the penguins. They had almost reached the theater when the driver suddenly turned. "Say," he said, "you don't mean to say those penguins are going to be on the same bill with Swenson's seals, do you?" Swenson's seals. "I don't know what else is on the bill," said Mr. Popper, paying him. "Anyway, here's the Regal." And they piled out and filed in the stage entrance. In the wings stood a large, burly, red-faced man. "Ah, so these are the Poppers performing penguins, huh?" he said. "Well, I want to tell you, Mr. Popper, that I'm Swenson. And those are my seals in there on stage right now. And if your birds try any funny business, it'll be too bad for them. My seals are tough, see?" They did nothing of eating 2 or 3 penguins apiece. It's true. True enough. Seals do eat penguins. Eat or be eaten, right? It's survival. Survival. That's some threat, I must say. Some threat. Who's to not think that the seals and the penguins might actually feel something in common? Maybe they don't like performing for people. I don't know. Are we going to safely assume that they would eat them? Or bond? Who knows? Uh-oh. Hold on. Excuse me. It is spring. There's a lot of pollen in the air. Oh, excuse me. From the stage could be heard the hoarse barks of the seals, who were going through their act. "Papa," said Mrs. Popper, "the penguins are the last act on the bill. You go run back quick and get those taxis, and we'll let the penguins ride around a while until it's time for their number." Mr. Popper hurried off to catch the drivers. When he returned, it was too late. The Popper performing penguins had already discovered the Swenson seals. "Papa, I cannot look," cried the children. "I cannot watch." There was a sound of dreadful confusion on the stage. The audience was in an uproar, and the curtain was quickly rung down. When the Poppers rushed onto the stage, both penguins and seals had found the stairway leading to the Swensons' dressing room and were on their way upstairs. "I can't bear to think what was happening up there," said Mr. Popper, with a shudder. Mr. Swenson only laughed. "I hope your birds were insured, Popper," he said. "How much were they worth?" Well, let's go up and look. Oh, do we have to bring insurance policies into this? They're already not licensed. "You go up, Papa," said Mrs. Popper. "Bill, you run out of the theater and call the police to come and try to save some of our penguins." "I'll get the fire department," said Janie. And when the firemen, with a great clanging, came and set up their ladder so that they could get in through the window of Mr. Swenson's dressing room, they were a little vexed to find that there was no fire at all. However, when they found 6 black-mustached seals sitting barking in the middle of the room with 12 penguins parading gaily around them in a square, they felt better. Then the policemen came in their patrol and climbed up the ladder with the firemen, which the firemen had left against the building. By the time they too came through the window, they could scarcely believe their eyes. For the firemen had put firemen's helmets on the penguins, which made the delighted birds look very silly and girlish. Seeing the firemen so friendly with the penguins, the policemen naturally took sides with the seals and put policemen's caps on them. The seals looked very fierce, with their long black mustaches and black faces underneath. The penguins, under their firemen's helmets, were parading in front of the policemen, while the seals, in their policemen's caps, were barking at the firemen. Mr. Popper and Mr. Swenson finally opened the door. I don't know. Is foreshadowing an issue in this book? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, have any of you started to go, what's going to happen next? Hey, what's up, Amber? Oh, excuse me, Aaron. Whichever sister you claim to be. Anyways, Mr. Popper sat down. His relief was so great that, that for a moment he could not speak. Your policemen had better get your hats off my seals now, said Mr. Swenson. I got down on the stage and I got to go down on that stage and finish the act now. Then he and his 6 seals slipped out of the room with a few parting barks. Well, goodbye, ducks, said the firemen, regretfully removing their helmets from the penguins and putting them on their own heads. Then they disappeared down the ladder. The penguins, of course, wanted to follow, but Mr. Popper held them back. Just then the door flew open and the theater manager burst into the room. Hold that man, he shouted to the policeman. Pointing at Mr. Popper, I have a warrant for his arrest. Who, me? Said Mr. Popper in a daze. What have I done? You've broken into my theater and thrown the place into a panic. That's what you've done. You're a disturbance of the peace. Oh, you're a disturber of the peace. I don't think I've ever seen that expression written that way. But I'm Mr. Popper, and these are my performing penguins, famous from coast to coast. I don't care who you are. You haven't any business in my theater. But Mr. Greenbaum is going to pay us $5,000 for a week at the Regal. Mr. Greenbaum's theater is the Royal, not the Regal. You've come to the wrong theater. Anyway, out you go, you and your performing penguins. The patrol is waiting outside. Uh-oh. Sometimes it's not so good to be absent-minded, is it? Oops. You are. Okay. Yay! Admiral Drake makes his way back into the storyline. So Mr. Popper, with Captain Cook, Greta Columbus, Louisa Nelson, Jenny, Magellan, Adelina, Scott, Isabella, Ferdinand, and Victoria, was bundled into the patrol wagon and hustled off to the police station. None of his pleas could move the desk sergeant. Please, I have to. Do you see the slip right here? This point, None of his pleas could move the desk sergeant. That theater manager is pretty mad at the way you busted into his theater, so I'm holding you. I'm going to give you all a nice, quiet cell, unless you furnish bail. I'm putting the bail at $500 for you and $100 for each of your birds. Oops. Of course, Mr. Popper did not have that much money about him. Neither did Mrs. Popper when they telephoned her at the hotel. The hotel bill was paid for several days ahead, but she had no cash. The check for the final week's salary was not due until the end of the week. Indeed, it now looked as if the Poppers would never see the check, since they could not get the penguins out of jail long enough to put on the act at the Royal Theater. Regal, Royal, Royal, Regal. Tomato, tomato. If only they could have gotten in touch with Mr. Greenbaum. Mr. Popper knew that kind man would have gotten them out. But Mr. Greenbaum was somewhere in Hollywood, out on the Pacific Coast. Sorry. I'm sorry. It just struck me funny. Ah! Oh, say hey, Aaron. We're reading Mr. Popper's Penguins, in case you didn't pick up on that. All right, let me read that little chapter. Or that little paragraph, excuse me. If only they could have gotten in touch with Mr. Greenbaum. Mr. Popper knew that kind man would have gotten them out. Mr. Greenbaum, he was somewhere in Hollywood, out on the Pacific Coast, and the Poppers had no idea how to reach him. It was very dull for the birds in jail. Wednesday came, and there was still no word from Mr. Greenbaum. No word from him. Thursday, and then the birds began to droop. It was soon apparent that the lack of exercise, combined with the heat, might prove too much for them. There were no more tricks or merry games, and even the younger birds sat all day in dismal silence, and Mr. Popper could not cheer them up. had a feeling that Mr. Greenbaum would probably turn up by the end of the week to see about renewing the contract. But Friday passed without any news of him. Saturday morning, Mr. Popper got up very early and smoothed his hair. Then he dusted off the penguins as well as he could, for he wanted everything to look as presentable as possible in case Mr. Greenbaum should appear. About 10 o'clock, there was a sound of footsteps in the corridor and jingling of keys, and the door of the cell was opened. "You're free, Mr. Popper. There's a friend of yours here." Mr. Popper stepped out into the light with the penguins. "You're barely in time, Mr. Greenbaum," he was about to say. Then as his eyes became accustomed to the light, he looked again. It was not Mr. Greenbaum who stood there. It was a great bearded man in splendid uniform. Smiling, he held out his hand to Mr. Popper. "Mr. Popper," he said, "I am Admiral Drake." "Admiral Drake!" gasped Mr. Popper. "Not back from the South Pole?" "Yes," said the Admiral. "The Drake Antarctic Expedition ship returned yesterday. You should have seen the reception New York gave us. You can read about it in today's paper. But I read about the trouble you were having over the penguins, and so here I am. I have a long story to tell you." "Could we go to the hotel and talk about it?" asked Mr. Popper. "My wife will be anxious to see us back." "Certainly," said the Admiral. And when they were all settled into the Poppers' rooms at the hotel with the penguins clustering round to listen, Admiral Drake began. "Naturally, when I knew that I was coming back to America, I often thought about the man to whom I had sent the penguin. It takes us a long time to hear things down there, and I often wondered how you and the bird were getting along. Last night at the mayor's dinner for us, I heard about the wonderful trained penguin act that you had been putting on all over the country. This morning I picked up the paper, and the first thing I read was that Mr. Popper and his 12 penguins were still being held in jail." "But 12 penguins, Mr. Popper? How on earth?" And Mr. Popper told how Greta arrived to keep Captain Hook from being lonely. Captain Cook. Why did I say Hook? Then Mr. Popper told how Greta had arrived to keep Captain Cook from being lonely, and how the little penguins had grown, and how the clever little band had saved the day for the Poppers when things looked bad. "It's amazing," said Admiral Drake. "I've seen a lot of penguins in my time, but never such educated ones as these. It certainly shows what patience and training can do. But now to get to my real point, Mr. Popper, you probably know that I have explored the North Pole as well as the South Pole." "Oh, yes," said Mr. Popper respectfully. "I've read books about both your Arctic and your Antarctic expeditions." "Well then," said the Admiral, "maybe you know why we explorers prefer the South Pole." "Could it be on account of the penguins, sir?" asked Janie, who had been listening very hard. Admiral Drake patted her head. "Yes, my dear, those long polar nights get pretty dull. You have no pets to play with. Of course there are polar bears up there, but you can't play with them. Nobody knows why there are no penguins at the North Pole. For a long time, the United States government had been wanting me to lead an expedition up there for the purpose of establishing a breed of penguins. I must come to the point, Mr. Popper. You've had such remarkable success with these birds of yours. Why not let me take them to the North Pole and start a race of penguins there?" Just then, Mr. Greenbaum and another gentleman were announced. They shook hands all around and were introduced to the Admiral. "Well, Popper," said Mr. Greenbaum. "Too bad about the mix-up over the theaters. But never mind. Here's Mr. Klein, who owns the Colossal Film Company. He's going to make your fortune. You'll be a poor man no longer, Mr. Popper." Well, here we go. We've now escalated to the filmmaker. Or do we take them and start a race where it isn't? What would you do? Aaron, what would you do? What would you do? I hate the taste of copper. It's gross. Oh, I hear the postman. I wonder if there's a small penguin in my mailbox today. "Poor," said Mr. Popper. "I'm not poor. These birds have been earning us $5,000 a week." "Oh, $5,000, says Mr. Klein. "What's that, pin money?" "I want to put those birds in the movies, Mr. Popper. We've got the story department working on stories for them already. While I'll put each of these birds under a contract, and that will keep you and the mistress on Easy Street for the rest of your lives." "Papa?" whispered Mrs. Popper. I don't want to live on Easy Street. I want to go back to Proudfoot Avenue. Better consider, Mr. Popper and the Admiral. I can't afford you anything like that. You say those men at the North Pole get lonely because there are no penguins? Asked Mr. Popper. Very lonely, said the Admiral. But if there were penguins up there, might the polar bears eat them? Oh, ordinary penguins, yes, said Admiral judiciously, but not such highly trained birds as yours, Mr. Popper. They could outwit any polar bears, I guess. It was now Mr. Klein's turn to speak. In every moving picture house in America, little children would have the pleasure of seeing stories acted by the Popper performing penguins, he said. Of course, if we succeeded in establishing the breed at the North Pole, said the Admiral, the name might have to be changed a little. I imagine that hundreds of years from now, scientists would be calling them the Popper Arctic penguins. Mr. Popper was silent for a moment. Gentlemen, he said, I want to thank you both. I'll give you my decision tomorrow. So, this is a big question here. This is a big deal. And we could look at this in so many different ways. What would you do? What would you do if you were responsible now for all of these penguins? Would you put them in movies? Would you send them somewhere because you think they're smart and they could outwit the natural predators? Would you take them back to Proud Street? Keep your furnace in your living room? Or would you put them back where they belong? I guess it depends on where your priorities are, right? Aaron, you didn't answer me. You always have something interesting to say. So does Elizabeth. None of you have a response. Okay, well, let's find out what Mr. Popper does. Farewell, Mr. Popper is the name of this chapter. It was a hard decision to make, and long after the visitors had gone, Mr. and Mrs. Popper sat and discussed what was best for everybody. Mrs. Popper could see the advantages of both offers, and she pointed these out, without trying to influence him. I feel that the penguins are really your responsibility, she said, and you must make up your mind. It was a pale and haggard Mr. Popper who was ready to announce his decision the next day. Mr. Klein, he said, I want you to know how much I appreciate your offer of putting my birds in the movies, but I'm afraid I have to refuse. I do not believe the life in Hollywood would be good for these penguins. Decision number 1. Then he turned to Admiral Drake. Admiral Drake, I'm going to give you the birds. In doing this, I'm considering the birds first of all. I know that they have been comfortable and happy with me. Lately, though, with the excitement and the warm weather, I've been worried about them. The birds have done so much for me that I have to do what is best for them. After all, they do belong in a cool climate. And then I can't help being sorry for those men up at the North Pole without any penguins to help them pass time. His decision. Isn't that interesting? Prioritizing the people. You would not believe the discussion I think we had here with the kids, because they all had their own problem-solving ideas. Listen to this. Listen to this sentence. Need I remind you? This book was written in 1938. Your government will thank you, Mr. Popper, answered the Admiral. God, I wish I had real chatters. I wish I had some real opinions coming into this chat room. Congratulations, Admiral, said Mr. Klein. Maybe you're right at that, Popper. Hollywood might have been too much for the birds. It's for the birds. Somebody who used to say that. I wish you'd let me make one short movie of them here in New York, though. Oh, of course, come on. Before they go, just some pictures of the sort of thing they would do on stage, you know. We'd show the film everywhere with an announcement that these are the famous Popper penguins that are being taken to the North Pole by the Admiral Drake of the United States Arctic Penguin Foundation Expedition, or something like that. I'd like that very much, said Mr. Popper. Oh, we'd pay you, of course, continued Mr. Klein. Not a fortune, as we could have if you'd let us give them a contract. But you say, $25? We could use it, said Mrs. Popper. It'll be very quiet at 432 Proudfoot Avenue, said Mr. Popper when everyone had left. Mrs. Popper did not answer. She knew that nothing she could say could really comfort him. However, said Mr. Popper, now that spring is here, a lot of people will be wanting their houses painted, so that we'd better be getting back. Anyway, said Bill, we've had 10 whole weeks of vacation right in the middle of the year, and not many children in Stillwater can say that. I just want you to take a look at the body language in this picture. Including the penguins. The next day, the cameraman arrived to make the picture of the penguins doing their tricks. It was arranged that the Poppers should stay in New York just long enough to see the expedition off. Meanwhile, in the harbor, the great sailing ship of Admiral Drake was being made ready for its long trip north. Every day, huge boxes of supplies of all sorts were hustled on board. The most comfortable quarters on the ship were turned over to the penguins, who were the cause of the voyage. Captain Cook was already quite familiar with the ship, since it was the same one that the Admiral had sailed to the South Pole, where Captain Cook had often seen it. Greta, too, had seen vessels of its kind. The two of them were kept very busy, showing and explaining everything to Nelson, Columbus, Louisa, Jenny, Scott, Magellan, Adelina, Isabella, Ferdinand, and Victoria. Sounds like the Von Trapp family, doesn't it? Sorry. The sailors all took the greatest delight in watching the curious little birds at their explorations. It looks as if this will be a pretty lively trip. They would say, these Popper penguins certainly live up to their reputation. But at last everything was ready, and the day came when the Poppers were to go down and say goodbye. Bill and Janie ran all over the ship and did not want to leave when it was time to draw up the gangplank. The Admiral shook hands with them and Mrs. Popper and thanked them for having helped to train the extraordinary penguins, and that were to be a real contribution to science. I really wish I had some real chatters in here. None of you, or all of you combined as one, don't have an opinion. Because right now I have a lump in my throat. I don't know how anybody can read something like this and not have an emotional response to it. What lessons did we learn so far? What lessons will we accept, and what lessons will we keep and move on with to help make future decisions? Anybody? Anybody have a comment? Nope. We're too busy hacking you. Oh, okay. I'll keep reading then. Sorry to interrupt you. Mr. Popper had gone down below to say a private farewell to his birds. I feel for him, but at the same time, I feel for the birds. All that kept him from breaking down completely was the knowledge that he was doing what was best for them, too. First, he said goodbye to all the younger penguins, then to Greta, who had saved Captain Cook. And last of all, he leaned over and said a special goodbye to Captain Cook, who had come and made life so different for Mr. Popper. Then he wiped his eyes, straightened his back, and went up on deck to say goodbye to Admiral Drake. It's kind of sad, right? Goodbye, Admiral Drake, he said. Goodbye, repeated the Admiral. Why, what do you mean? Aren't you coming with us? Me? Go with you to the North Pole? Why, of course, Mr. Popper. But how could I go with you? I'm not an explorer or a scientist. I'm only a house painter. You're the keeper of the penguins, aren't you? Roared the Admiral. Man alive, aren't those penguins the reason for this whole expedition? And who's going to see that they're well and happy if you're not going along? Go put on one of those fur suits like the rest of us. We're pulling anchor in a minute. Mama, shouted Mr. Popper to Mrs. Popper, who had already got up to the gangplank. I'm going too. Admiral Drake says he needs me. Mama, do you mind if I don't come home for a year or two? Oh, as to that, said Mrs. Popper, I'll miss you very much, my dear, but we have money to live on for a few years, and in winter it will be much easier to keep the house tidy without a man sitting around all day. I'll be getting back to Silverwater tomorrow. Oh, Stillwater. Tomorrow is the day for the meeting of the Ladies' Aid and Missionary Society, and I'll be just in time. Okay. If these last 2 pages haven't come full circle to some things, it's not even funny. I mean, it's funny, but it's really not funny. So goodbye, my love, and good luck. Goodbye and good luck, echoed the children. And the penguins, hearing their voices, scuttled up on the deck, stood there beside the Admiral and Mr. Popper. And they solemnly lifted their flippers and waved as the great ship moved slowly down the river toward the sea. And the end. I could just go on and on about the happenings, the additional characters, the decision-making, the participants in the decision-making, the controversies, the competition, the contracts, the money, what each life and act are worth. I think today was a good day to read the book. I have a lot of them. I didn't really expect to get through it, the whole book, as quickly as I did, but you gotta love the large print. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Atwater. See, even in the 1930s, aspects of art, books, music, theater, all showed how society knew and still knows where we make our mistakes. This is not technically a history book, but it is. I used to think history was my least favorite subject. And that's because I have issues with numbers. I don't remember dates. Don't ask me when somebody's birthday is. I'll never remember it. I just won't. So if I don't call you on your birthday and you think I know when your birthday is, I'm sorry. I'll probably miss your birthday. But it used to stress me out. But I'm also starting to realize that I know more about history through everything other than history books that I need to know. And honestly, right now, whatever they're putting in my food and water is making me feel exceptionally ill. I don't know that you would know how I feel right now, sitting here having read this book for the last hour and what? Hour and a half? But we're not well. And that's because other people are dictating our survival and what our worth is and what it's based on. It's not fair, is it? I don't think so. All you people in the chat seem to think you have a right to determine that. Don't you? If it's not you, it's who's in charge of you or who pays your taxi fare. It's wrong. What you're doing is wrong. On behalf of my puffin, I hope you enjoyed Mr. Popper's Penguins. And the movie they made is absolutely delightful. It's very different, but again, all interpretations are a little different. I bid y'all a good day. We're just going to continue to do the best we can here. Oh, she's a really nice lady, by the way. She's a very good baker, but she's a really nice lady. There's going to be consequences, you know. Maybe they'll be mine, maybe they'll be yours. I already feel mine. But I'm a curiosity type of person. I don't know how many lives I have left. But what you're doing is wrong. Just so you know, it's really wrong. Did you ever stop and think? What if you were a penguin? Are you too busy being the admiral? Are you too busy being the owner of the Regal? What are you too busy being to realize how wrong this is? If Karen gets me killed, so be it. I think you guys are trying for a slow death, though, aren't you? Yeah. Have yourself a good day.